Okay, Assalamu alaikum. Hope you're all well. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. And welcome to this Q&A live stream. As I said before, I'm going to try to do these every 5 or so live streams because I know there are people that want to get on and ask questions, and they don't like to do it if they don't have a question with respect to whatever I've presented on that day, right? So I'll do these now. I already have a couple of people backstage, and I see no point in delaying. So let's bring them on, starting with the screen name here says Zenon. Assalamu alaikum, Zenon.
Wa alaikum salam. How are you? Can you hear me?
I'm very good. Yes, I can hear you perfectly.
Alhamdulillah. So, first of all, might I say that it's a pleasure to be on here. You're doing something for the global Muslim community, and I am a keen follower of your content online. May Allah bless you for what you're doing.
Jazakallah. Thank you so much. God bless you.
So, my question was mainly regards to some personal advice I wanted as to a journey that I'm on of intellectual growth, spiritual growth. So, my background is that I'm a Sunni, and I'm 16 years old. I live in South Asia. And recently, I've had this intellectual awakening, you could say, to all of the things that I was taught as a child and growing up. And now I'm beginning to question a lot of it. And I'm working on becoming more Qur'an-centric in my mentality and my intellectual process, inshallah. And I wanted your advice as to what your advice would be for someone who wants to gain knowledge, understanding, and wisdom on several subjects, including religion, especially coming from a sectarian background, and wants to deprogram and unlearn a lot of the dogmas he was raised with, while not compromising on real life commitments such as school, academics, etc.
Yeah.
Strike a balance, if you get what I mean.
Yeah, I can. Now I should really actually think about these just on my own separately, so I have a sort of like more ready answer for people, because for me, for example, it wasn't a smooth journey, right? So if I'm able to like actually put things together in a way which could give advice to somebody else where make their journey a bit smoother, of course I'd love to do that. So it's one of those, it's like when people ask you, right, what would your advice be for learning Arabic, right? So me, I grew up with Arabic, so I'm not the best person to ask, right? Because I didn't have to study it as a second language, right? So it's better to ask the people who actually did and attained the high level of it, right? But in something like this, like when I look back at myself, right? I mean, it's very difficult to plot how I went about it. Okay, but what I would definitely say for starters, right, is you want to actually start to get sort of almost like start of a clean slate, so to speak, right? When you talk about deprogramming, you sort of just want to like say, okay, I'm going to just take a bit of a step back, take a breather. Commit yourself also to being patient, to allowing yourself to be patient, with the development. You find some people, especially young people, when it comes to understanding the religion, they want to understand it very quickly, fast, and there's no rush, right? There's no rush. Allah isn't in a rush, right? He'll be patient with you as you grow, right? So there's never a need to be in sort of like a frantic way about it, right? You can take a good amount of time and and not sort of like force yourself into too much. But definitely, when you talk about this, you want to talk about starting with a Qur'anic mindset, right? So you want to look at the major things first. I mean, this is one of the biggest issues, I think, in a lot of the tradition of Islam, is if things are turned over, right? The minor things are brought up to be as if they're the major things, and the major things are sort of relegated to being minor, right? So you want to look at the major issues first, right? The big things, right? So what are we talking about here? Just the broad ideas of, for example, what all of what religions want, right, for their people, which is salvation, right? So having a broad idea of what God wants of us, right, while we are on this earth. What is it like the purpose of life? What is the meaning of being here, right? What are the goals that we're supposed to achieve while we're here, right? So you want to, focus on these things first, right? That's when it comes to like looking at just holistically in terms of the deen, right? If you're going to talk about, because we can talk about different areas here in terms of how you're studying. If you're going to talk about studying the Quran, right, in terms of actually starting to like and spend more time pondering, then you're going to have to again start with the major things, right? So that for starters, that means the major words. I've mentioned them in several live streams, right? Sometimes I call it the big five, right? So understanding what shirk is, understanding what kufr is, right? These key vocabulary that come again and again, which if you don't know what they mean Quranically, you just cannot understand the Quran. Really, you will never get it accurate. You'll miss it, and you'll be turned about a lot. Even Quranists, I think some Quranists are like that, right? You find those who who have gone down the road of basically saying the whole everybody's a mushrik and this is shirk and this is shirk and that's shirk and everything is shirk, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I've
you've
seen
seen that, right? Yeah, that sort of thing. It's because they haven't
Yes.
gone back and really thought through what shirk is Quranically, right? They're taking the linguistic thing of just associate, and I think a lot of it is baggage from like from Salafi backgrounds and Wahhabi backgrounds, and where shirk was very prominent there, and some Quranists then and when some people wake up to the to how absurd some of the things are in Wahhabi Salafi Islam, some of them get out from that and say, the reason why it's so absurd is because we haven't really gotten rid of shirk, right? And so they go even more into thinking that the issue is, and yeah, in one way it is, but the problem is understanding. So there's that. There's from that side. So you can talk about realigning yourself religiously in terms of generally why are we here on this world, right? What does God want from us? These are almost moral questions, yeah, questions of morality, of being, of our time in this world. Then you can look at terms of the Quran itself, right? In terms of trying to get to understand a better understanding of the Quran. Again, you go to the major things, right? Or you can talk about looking at history, right? Trying to realign things from understanding history. A lot of the times, one of the big barriers to people taking the Quran seriously as a source of guidance, right, is that there's this old history that's a barrier between them and the Quran, right? They say, okay, but the Sahaba understood it this way, and the Salaf understood it this way, and Imam so and so, and Imam so and so, and are all of these people wrong? All of these people, that sort of thing, that sort of thinking, right? It creates a barrier, right? So you can't get to realigning yourself with the deen because the Quran is blocked by all of these things, right? Tafsir that you've learned before actually stops you thinking about verses in almost a simple way that they are, right? Just because your mind can fall into a rut. Oh, he disappeared. I think he got cut off or something. We'll see if he gets back and add him. In the meantime, let me just check I've got somebody else backstage, but I don't want to bring them on until our fellow here, see if he can make a return. So this brother of ours here, Zenon. Meantime, let me just check some of these messages. Assalamu alaikum. Have you seen the recent debate or discussion between Mufti Abu Layth and Qur'anists? Any thoughts? Well, yeah, I did see, because I've sort of had communications with Muhammad from God, our brother Muhammad, right? Before, right? I mean, he I remember him contacting me a long time ago before he even made his channel, and he donated donated to my PayPal, I think, a few times. He emailed me a few times. I remember he had a discussion with Aaron Ra, right, the atheist, a while back as well, and we emailed a bit about that, if I remember. And then a while later, he started this channel and it grew very rapidly. So I've known him well. He had an excellent video. I remember the first video I saw of his, long time ago. He didn't have like that big beard that he has now. But the video itself was private, right? I remember it being private or something, because I tried to search for it and couldn't find it. It was unlisted or something, I don't know. It was a brilliant piece of advice for people. In terms of this interaction with Mufti Abu Layth, I thought it was almost like a train wreck, right? It wasn't good at all. I didn't enjoy it. I didn't like it. I've put my own comment on the video. I didn't even watch all of it because about halfway through, I got a headache and just stopped. Literally just gave me a headache. My head was hurting, right? So I just stopped. So I put a comment then, and Muhammad actually replied to that comment. And then I watched a little bit more, right? I was thinking, okay, let me actually finish it so I can give my own sincere advice about it. But again, I just couldn't get through it. I couldn't get through it because, well, I mean, you can read my comment there, but there was a lot of interruptions and stuff like that. But I felt that Muhammad was a bit too combative. He was very combative. He was sort of standoffish, right? I think he came in there with the idea that he's going to be able to debate, and he wants to like present things to Mufti Abu Layth to stump him or to this wise Mufti. He wanted him to just come in and sort of like explain the Quran and our position, right? And so because Muhammad wanted to explain, wanted to sort of push back a lot, he wanted to just sort of like he's coming in with more of a mindset of a debate, whereas Mufti was coming more of a mindset of I want to understand. So Mufti was asking a lot of questions, right? And Muhammad was not really elaborating on them as much as I feel he should be, right? So because of that, Mufti kept on having to like actually ask deeper, like I mean, I would advise just reading the comment which I put on there. But yeah, I didn't like it at all, right? I mean, yes, there was a lot of interruptions, right, from Mufti's end. But the thing about it, I mean, I mentioned that in one of the comments as well. I feel that when you're having a conversation with somebody and they're interrupting you a lot, I mean, yeah, and you've already established, you already think that you're speaking to somebody who's genuine, right, who's like sincere, and they interrupt a lot. All right, then it's usually people interrupt for a reason. It's not for nothing, right? If they interrupt you, it's because either you're not addressing what they want, or they think you're not addressing what they want, or you're going on to things which they already know, or things like that, right? People don't interrupt. I mean, this idea that some people have that people interrupt as a way of winning debates. Maybe I'm naive, but I don't think people are like that. I don't think most people are like that, right? As I don't think Mufti was like that during the debate. It wasn't even a debate; it was supposed to be just a conversation. But when somebody's interrupting a lot, think also to yourself, okay, why is interrupting? Is that interrupting happening? Are the interruptions happening? And usually it can be just because you're not understanding what the person wants, right? You're not captivating, you're not delivering what he wants, something that's interesting enough for him to listen. If you get my picture, right? If the person keeps on interrupting, then usually, if you're having a genuine conversation with somebody, if the person keeps on interrupting, you're doing a poor job of saying something as well, right? Because otherwise they would listen, right? So there's that. I mean, that's a side thing. Anyway, our brother is back. Assalamu alaikum, Zenon. What happened there?
Alaikum salam. The thing is, the laptop battery ran out, and I'm on my phone right now.
Right.
I'm sorry, my phone is pretty embarrassing.
No problem. No,
sorry.
sorry. Yeah. So what I was saying to you
All
is
right.
again. So I had one other thing to add, which was, let's say you one of the other thing I said, history, right? History can be a barrier to you sort of reclaiming a Quran-centric position, right? Because a lot of the time the history prevents that. The history of of the Salaf al-Salih and the Madahib and all of this long history of things, it prevents that. Now, so you need to reassess history, right? Reassessing history can really help you see that there wasn't some amazing um, um, generations of knowledge that they get passed down. It wasn't like that at all. I mean, there was
Yes,
such a
it is
big
quite
bungling.
strange. Yes.
There was such a big bungling of the preservation of this deen. It's just amazing.
It
It's
was
amazing.
very chaotic, very chaotic.
Sorry, say it again.
It was a very chaotic era that read.
It was
All
absolutely
right,
crazy.
so
It
I
was
believe it was a
insane.
very chaotic era.
Yeah. Yeah, it was. It was insane. I mean, I mean, it's a miracle the Quran itself survived, right? I mean, just think of the issue that we have right now with the qira'at, right? Or even just with the manuscripts. We do not even have a single manuscript from of the manuscripts which Uthman sent out, right? That is a huge failing, right, of the early ummah, right? Huge failing. What happened to the Masahif? We don't have them anywhere. The earliest one we find, I mean, by all rights, they should be in our museums. We should have all of the Masahif of Uthman that he sent out. We should have them in our museums. We should know with 100% certainty, right? They should be like signed by Sahaba or Tabi'een or something. We should be able to see that. I mean, the most we have, the earliest thing we have is those few pages, and where are they found? They're in Birmingham, right? It's not even us who discover them,
Yes.
right? And then, of course, you have the whole issue of the qira'at, of course, that, 20 qira'at and more, of course. There were many more qira'at than we have now, the canonical, right? And they are not mutawatir, as they like to claim. They are not mutawatir, right? So we have that, right? And anyway, the point is that you need to sort of go back and reassess the history as well, right? Which blocks. There's history which blocks you from reclaiming a Quran-centric position, right? And some of that can be reassessed with the Quran itself, right? So by looking at the Quran itself, you can actually start to reassess some of the history, the false history that we have of the Prophet's time and the Seerah. So again, you would start by the major things. You say, okay, what do I know with certainty, right, of the first of the the beginning? So you'd say, okay, yes, there's a Meccan period and a Medina period that we know for certainty, right? And then you can start looking
Yes.
in the Quran about what happened in the Meccan period, what happened in the Medina period, right? And one of the things, for example, when you do that, when you start to do that sort of thing, you start to see this this progression of nifaq, right? That we have this
Yes.
idea that as time went on, that in the beginning of Medina period, that first of all we think that there was no munafiqun in Mecca period, when there are, right? So in the Quran there are the Mecca surahs which speak about the hypocrites, right? But we have been taught that no, all of the muhajirun could not have been hypocrites. Well, that doesn't seem accurate. There are some verses which which talk about the hypocrites as traders, right? They talk about اشتروا الدنيا بالآخرة. They purchased the dunya by using the afterlife, right? So they had these you have these hints in the Quran that some of these hypocrites were traders, whereas the people of Medina were mostly farmers, right? They were farmers. And also, when it talks about the hypocrites, right at the start of the Medina period, right at the start, we don't generally see that there were hypocrites, because even at the very start, like the main person who they talk about being a hypocrite, Abdullah ibn Ubay, right? He didn't feel any need to be a hypocrite, to like pretend to be a Muslim in the beginning in Medina, right? That isn't the case. That happened later, when he started to see, okay, I need that. But the very first surah revealed in Mecca already, or in Medina, was already talking about it. So you have that, and then you if you line up the surahs, you find an increase in nifaq, right? So by the time you have to Surah At-Tawbah, it's basically almost it's speaking very heavily about hypocrites, and they're active in the ummah. They're doing things, right? And it talks about how the believers are being influenced by them. فيكم سماعون لهم. Among you are those who listen earnestly to the munafiqun. This is just a year before the Prophet dies, just 1 year before. And it talks about, like one of the things that you have in the Maliki Madhab, for example, is the amal of Ahl al-Medina, right? The practice of the people of Medina. Well, one of the last verses of the Quran talks about وَمِنْ أَهْلِ الْمَدِينَةِ مُنَافِقُونَ, right? And of the people of Medina, there are hypocrites. And when the Quran mentions it, it's not mentioned like one or two or few who aren't active, who have no power. It's warning because there's a good amount of them, and they are doing things. They're active. They tried to assassinate the Prophet before he died, right? On his way back from Tabuk, and then again at Harsha, which most people don't know about, right? So you have this, right? And you have Surah Al-Ma'idah speaking to the Prophet like it's consoling him as if his deen is going to be gone, right? It talks about people who do not come to him. It says them, لا يحزنك الذين يسارعون في الكفر. Don't let them, those who race in kufr, don't let them make you sort of depressed. The Prophet was getting depressed because of them. Right? This is like a few months before the Prophet passed away. And it's talking about people who are racing in kufr, right? And talks about الذين قالوا آمنا بأفواههم ولم تؤمن قلوبهم, and those who say we have faith with our mouths but have no faith in their hearts, right? And it talks about the alliance of them with the Jews there, right? The Jews who were left in Medina, of course they were, like, again. So that's another thing you can reassess. The idea that Medina got purged from Jews. It wasn't. In Surah Al-Ma'idah, it talks about them coming to the Prophet to seek judgment. Who are these Jews if all of the Jews had been massacred in Medina or expelled or whatever it is, right? No, they were still there. There were still the Jewish tribes in Medina. Okay, but we don't have that in our history. We don't have that. It talks about سَمَّعُونَ لِلْكَذِبِ سَمَّعُونَ لِقَوْمٍ آخَرُونَ. They are listening to other people who have not come to you even. So there's another group. Who are these other group of people? Right. So when you start to like really pay attention to the wording of the Quran, you start to really see the huge activity that was happening, right up to the time when the Prophet passed away, right? And then, of course, after he passed away, do you think nifaq would increase or decrease? Of course, it's going to increase. Do you think the munafiqun are going to be more active or less? Of course, they're going to be more active. After the Prophet passed away, how many tribes of the Arabs apostated? There were 5 new claimants to prophethood, right? So this idea that the Sahaba in Medina and the people of Medina and that they preserve the knowledge. You have the amal of Ahl Medina. That has questions in it. I'm speaking because I have more of a Maliki background, right? I'm assuming you're probably Hanafi, yes?
Yes, I am Hanafi. Yes.
Yeah, more Hanafi, right? Yeah, I mean the Hanafi madhab started off much better, right? Because it was more in line with reason. But then in the end, the Ahl al-Hadith won out with all of the madhahib, right?
Yes.
In the end, all of them became
Unfortunately
hadith centric. So that's what happened. So I guess what I'm probably rambling maybe too much, but what I'm trying to get at here is that you need to reassess a lot, right? And when you reassess, you start with the things that you're absolutely sure of, and use them to build up the rest, right? So once you have this sort of idea, first of all, for example, about the early ummah, right, from the Quran and up to the time when the Prophet passed away, then this idea of that as long as we can get the chain of narrations go back to a Sahabi, then we accept it. No, because how many of the Sahaba were hypocrites or listened to hypocrites, right? So, for example, the hadith of Abu Bakr, like the very first departure from the Quran, when the Prophet passed away, and he said
the issue of Fadak?
Sorry?
Was it the issue of Fadak?
Yes, exactly, the issue of Fadak, right? The very first. I mean, you can there's only 2 logical ways to look at this. Either Abu Bakr himself was a hypocrite, right? Or he heard that hadith from a hypocrite. Right, so the narration would say he heard it. Of course, he never heard it. Right, I don't think he was a hypocrite. Right, So I think he got told it by others, and we have other narrations which basically say that that later on in his life, like not that much later, because he only lived 2 years, right, after the Prophet's passing away. But later on, he had a book of narrations, right, 500 narrations, which he was like tossing and turning at night one time, and then he got up and burnt them, and then he could sleep. And Aisha was like, what was that book that you burnt? He said, well, that book had like 500 narrations, hadiths of the Prophet, and but they had been told to me by others, and I'm no longer sure of them, and I'm worried that if I die, people will attribute those to me. I mean, so I think the ship already sailed in some of that regard. He already accepted some narrations from those hypocrites, and he's one of the. So Abu Bakr, I see him as one of those in that verse where it says, وَفِيكُمْ سَمَّعُونَ لَهُمْ, and among you are those who listen earnestly to the hypocrites, right? So Abu Bakr is one of them. Right, I think Abu Bakr is one of those, right? So that calls into question a lot of his narrations now, right? So you start to do this, right, to build a clearer and clearer picture, right? By keeping firm with what you're sure of, and one of the things you're most sure of is what's in the Qur'an, right? So you can start with that and use that to slowly start to filter out the correct things from the incorrect things, right? You start to slowly get a better and better picture, like like when you sorry, yeah, I mean, like a metaphor here, like on a plane, if you're a plane which is rising higher and higher, right? You start to see clearer and clearer the outline of the city, right? You start to see the shape of it, the shape of things, right? As you ascend high and high, you start to be able to see that, right? But if you were like going to draw a map of a place, of a city, for example, you start with the main roads, with the big roads first. Don't start with the alleyways. Like, you start with big roads. Make sure you have their proportions right where they should be. Have the major landmarks where they should be, and then you start to fill in the rest. Right, slowly, it starts to build a better and better picture. And it's something which takes a long time. I mean, one of the issues here is that we don't have the sort of like Qur'anist or Qur'an alone ideas. Don't have a tradition of 1,400 years of dedicated scholarship. We can barely get somebody to think about it seriously for one day, right? They will sort of like consider a little, and then they're gone. They won't entertain it for very long, right? They're like, okay, let's think about it. Oh, how will I pray about it? Okay, let me just fast, and they're gone, right? And they can't. It's a very big disservice to the Quran, right? Can't you spend, if you're like somebody who's an intelligent, thinking person, can't you? And I'm not talking about just Quran-centric ideas. I'm talking even about just the Quran like alone, like with nothing else, right? People treat it like a plan B, right? They're like, oh, well, I guess if I don't have hadiths and I don't have sunnah and I don't have this, I guess I can use the Quran. I mean, what else am I going to use, right? It's like that's the view of the Quran. It's relegated to that sort of like backup plan, not even plan B. It's a plan C, right? It's something which I don't have anything better, right? I don't have anything better. So now I get.
Yes.
I mean, you can dedicate, give yourself you should give yourself like a year at least, right? Go through a few khatims of the Quran, right? Saying to yourself, okay, if I had just the Quran, what would the deen look like, right? Give yourself some dedicated time. Is it not worth 1 year of your life of like thinking in that sort of way? It is, right? Definitely. And the results of that, and if we had it for if you were doing it like that, and if you had another friend who was an intelligent person who was working with you on that sort of thing, or if somebody else was working on it, not just for 1 year of their life, like they were dedicated to that for the whole year, for their whole lives, right? And then their understandings get passed on, and then other people add to it, and we have a tradition like that of 1,400 years, right? Of what would we have? We've had some brilliant minds in this ummah, right? Some really high IQ intellectual people, right? So this, I mean, some Quran seem to think that you have to get it all by yourself from the Quran. I mean, the Quran talks about, لولا نفر من كل فرقة ليتفقهوا في الدين, the verse, right? That if it were only, it's not for the believers to all go out together. let some portion to stay behind so that they can gain fiqh in the deen, so then they could warn others, right? There is this idea of we have some people who are dedicated to studying, and then they in turn warn others, right? We do have that. It's not this idea that everybody just sort of starts from scratch every time, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So I don't know if I rambled a lot too much about that, or if any of that was useful.
No.
I do need to. I do need
Very
to actually. Yeah, I do need to actually, think of a way to, like, sort of a more structured way to advise people to ask that question, because it does come up quite a bit, right? People who are like trying to get into the spirit of this, of re-examining everything, right? What advice would I give for that? I need to sort of like more maybe structure it better. Maybe I'll do a live stream about it one time or something. I don't know.
Inshallah.
Yeah.
So
Inshallah.
my other question was actually related to history, because lately I've been reevaluating a lot of the Sunni narrative around things. Like the Sunnis, they paint stuff as perfect, picture perfect. I mean, the Sahabas were basically all infallible. All right, they made no mistakes. Abu Bakr, he was perfect. Umar was perfect. Uthman was perfect. Imam Ali was perfect. And well, obviously they had mistakes, some more than others. Personally, I align more with the Shi'i narrative, if anything. And it just seems more logical to me now. However, I'm often stuck between two extremes. One are the Sunnis who venerate the companions and the early generations too much, and one are the Shias, especially the 12ers, who tend to villainize everyone too much. Like they view Abu Bakr, Umar, Uthman as pure evil. Yes, that they're basically demons in human skin. And I'm often stuck between those two extremes, and I'm working on and I want to figure out a way to learn this history in a sense that it's balanced, objective, as factual as it can be, because there's a lot of lies, a lot of truth that's a bit of truth that's hidden with a lot of lies. You can get what I mean. What would be your advice regarding that?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I mean, look, I don't think you have to basically start from scratch there either. I mean, the early Sunnis, many of the early Sunnis had a much more balanced view, right? So you don't have this concept that it's these extremes, right? Remember, this is how we are now, right? A lot of you have these extremes now. Early on, and you can easily find a lot of the early Sunni and Shias who did not have these extreme views on all of these, right? They did have a much more balanced. So, that literature is there, right? And those ideas are there. And it's not, and it's some of that is just seeing them as human, right? As just humanizing them, right? That the caricature idea of somebody as a complete saint and somebody as a complete villain, right? It doesn't always work. It does. You do have it sometimes, of course. You do have people who are utterly like that. Some people who are really saintly, and some people are really. But the majority of people are always lukewarm, right? Like, I mean, take the ibra from our time now, right? You find people who are very dedicated, and you find some people who are completely, dedicated. Some people completely dedicated to good and faith, and and deen and religion, that sort of thing, right? And others who are completely against it, who are like villainous almost. But the majority of people are sort of like in between. That's how it is, right? That's how it's always been, right? The majority of us have one thing. I mean, Umar ibn Khattab, for example, he never used to spend that much time with the Prophet. He would come he would do Jum'ah once every two. He had a roommate, right? This is when he first came to Medina, and he would go sometimes, or is a neighbor? Sorry, he would go sometimes to Jum'ah prayer, and sometimes his neighbor would, and whoever went would come back and tell the other what the Prophet had said, right? It wasn't this, intense. But anyway, the point is that you can, reevaluate all of that, right? And again, the easy way to do that is to start with the Qur'an, right? I mean, people talk about the Sunnis, for example. They talk about they will take a verse which praises some of the Sahaba, right? And they will generalize it to basically all of the Sahaba, include Muawiyah and everybody else, right? That the Quran is speaking. And I mean, one of the key verses about that, where Allah is really praising some, there's a lot of qualifiers. As-sabiqun al-awwaluna min al-muhajirun wal-ansar, right? So there you have a lot of qualifiers. As-sabiquna, the first and foremost. Al-awwalun, the first of them even more, right? So the sabiqun, not just sabiqun, but the first, al-awwalun, from the sabiqun. From who? From the muhajirun and the ansar. God is pleased with them and they with him, right? You can't take that and then say it's all of the Sahaba, right? Were angels,
Yes.
right? Nor can you take the verses which denigrate some of the Sahaba and say that it applies to everybody. Of course, it doesn't, right? So you can definitely find that balanced view, right? I think, for example, Hassan Farhan al-Maliki, he has a very balanced view. He's very. I mean, he studied hadith and stuff. Right? When he got into hadith, he did it with a point of view from history. He never studied
Yes.
hadith for fiqh, right? He never studied for fiqh or for aqeedah or anything like that. And I think there are very few people who have actually done that. He's read every single musnad book, meaning every single book which has
Inshallah.
like primary book which has like chains of narrations, right? I'm not talking about secondary books which come later and which use the earlier books which have the original narration. No, all of the primary works with the original narrations. He's read through all of them with a view of understanding history and understanding the characters involved, right? Very few people have done that. I think most people, when they study hadith, they want to do it for fiqh or aqeedah or these sort of things, right? From the get-go, that was his love. He's always been a person who loved history, right? So,
Yes.
so you can find all of that. It's all a lot of that literature is there. It just takes a lot of work. It really does take a lot of work, right? But you can get a very balanced view of the Sahaba and Ahlul Bayt. And I don't think it's very difficult, to be honest. You just have to, again, just get rid of sort of the cartoonish reverence and the cartoonish vilification, right? And you can find
Yes.
many who do have this, I think, a very balanced view, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
The thing is, of course, that I can't read or speak or, well, understand Arabic much. And in fact, not at all. I mean, I need English subtitles to understand what the Arabic is saying. I can understand selective words due to my Urdu vocabulary. There are some words that match it. But generally, an entire sentence, it's beyond my grasp. I want a way to reevaluate this stuff, if possible, from an English speaking point of view, because English is my strongest language, I'd say, that I can speak and understand very well. What would be your advice for resources or speakers or scholars in that regard, English speaking?
I don't really know too much about. I can't really advise on that. I wish I could. I mean, I haven't looked too much into that. I mean, I could say, you could go to. I mean, because Hassan Malik, he's got his website, which you could just sort of like, you've got these plugins now, which you can Google Translate. It will just translate the whole page for you. And of course, it will be like a clunky translation or whatever, but you'll be able to get the gist, definitely, right? And he has a lot of stuff that are like that regularly. I mean, all of his books are free online, and he has books about the Sahaba, right? And he sort of categorizes Sahaba in different levels, right? Like the first Tabaqa of the Sahaba, because again, trying to get a more balanced idea, it means having the whole range of understanding, right? Of the best of the Sahaba and the worst of the worst, and in between, right? What do you have? Where do people lie? Okay, he's got a book, for example, a lot of books about short, like treatises, sort of more than books about Uthman, for example. So Uthman of this person, Uthman of this. So the different interactions which Uthman had with others, right? So you can look at that. I mean, he's got, like I said, his main book there is a Suhba wa Sahaba, right? And I think you could be able to Google Translate that. But other than that, I really don't have much that I could point to in English.
Yes, that's no problem. Thank you. Jazakallah khair. And my last question. What is your opinion on the whole notion that the Tawar Shias can use the Qur'an to somehow justify the theology that their imams are infallible? Because, of course, I do have Tawar Shia friends, a few, and they tend to use Qur'anic verses to justify the fact that the Imam Ali and his progeny, they were infallible. Of course, 12 imams, and some of the verses that come up are Surah 33, verse 33, 33 chapters, the Ayat Tathir, as it's called, among others. So I wanted to know your opinion on it.
Yeah, I don't think they're very valid, right? I mean, they're just not very strong, right? I mean, the Ayat Tathir, for example. I mean, it starts off, it's speaking obviously just about the women, right, of the household,
Yes.
right? And halfway through, it changes, right? So that automatically makes it almost like a weak argument to say something like that, right?
Yes.
So it is talking about, of course, Ahlul Bayt, and then when Allah says He wants to do something, right? That doesn't
Yes.
mean that doesn't mean that that it will be done without any sort of like receptiveness on your part, because we do have a verse which talks about that for everybody, right? يريد الله ليبين لكم ويهديكم سنن الذين من قبلكم ويتوب عليكم, right? You have these verses where Allah is saying that what He wants to do, right?
Yes.
Let me pull it up for you, and then you can see that if you were to take, because one of the things they look at that is they say, but because Allah is saying He wants to do that, I mean it gets done and that's it, right? And then also, how does that conform with then narrowing it down to just the line of imams? What about everybody else from the Ahlul Bayt, right? None of they didn't have that tathir either, right? Because it's just a very weak argument. I mean, because they narrow it down, they want to narrow the Ahlul Bayt to be just Fatima, Ali,
12
Hussein,
people.
Hassan, Hussein, and those 12 people, and that's it. But what about the sons of Hassan, right?
Yes.
Or the other sons of Hussein, right? The descendants from Ali Zain Abidin, he had other sons. What about them, right? So it falls apart because, of course, all of different Shia sects, right? They all want to claim this verse, and of course, it has nothing about 12 imams or the number or that they all must be from Hussein or any of that, right? And it has nothing to do with being infallible, right? I mean, the whole point of being
Yes.
purified means that you're not infallible, right? Why would they need to
Yeah.
be purified if they're already infallible, right? It's not about. It's talking about trying to, this is sort of like, again, it's sort of like it's something more for not more for the prophet, but all of us want our families to be blessed. So we all pray for our families to be blessed, right? So what it comes down to, we want that, right? And so the prophet prayed for and wanted this for his family. So the prophets who prayed for their families to be blessed and things like that, this is what Allah would try to favor them, so long as they are receptive, right? So long as they are receptive. The verse that I was talking about, the other verse which you might want to look at when it comes to these things, it's the verses right after the verses of marriage. So in Surah An-Nisa, verse 26, it says, يريد الله ليبين لكم ويهديكم سنن الذين من قبلكم ويتوب عليكم والله عليم حكيم. It says Allah wants to make things clear for you and to guide you to the ways of those before you, the sunnah of those before you. Obviously referring to the sunnah of marriage here from the previous verses, right? And to repent towards you. ويتوب عليكم والله عليم حكيم. So Allah saying He wants to repent towards you. Does that mean everybody's getting repentance? No. And the next verse again is والله يريد أن يتوب عليكم, and God wants to make tawbah towards you, right? ويريد الذين يتبعون الشهوات أن تميلوا ميلا عظيما, while those who follow their lusts want to divert you in a great way, right? So this is not this emphatic thing that because Allah says that this is what He wants to do, right? That you can't be, that it will happen without you being receptive, right? There's no jabr. There's no, there has to be something, right? So the great people of Ahlul Bayt, they received that blessing because they were themselves dedicated, right? They were themselves. And that's why, for example, it comes up at the end of this verse. So when the start of verse says, وَقَرْنَ فِي بِيُوتِكُمْ وَلَا تَبَرُجْنَ تَبَرُجَ الْجَاهِلِيَةِ الْأُولَى, right? And stay in your homes and do not sort of like tower over people the way that the Jahiliyyah people would tower over people, right? And establish
Yes.
salah and pay the zakat and obey Allah and His Messenger, because Allah wants to, remove the impurities from you, or people of the house, and purify you. So they had to have that receptiveness to all that went before it, right? That had to be part of it. So I think just generally they're very weak arguments. You also, of course, have the other argument about أطيعوا الله وأطيعوا الرسول وأولي الأمر منكم, right? Obey Allah and obey the Messenger and those in authority among you. So again, they would say, okay, why would Allah say obey them if they were not infallible? Well, the prophets themselves are actually infallible, right? So there are verses in the Quran where Allah rebukes the prophet for something, right? Rebukes him
Yes, of course.
for something related to others, which shows again that the idea of infallibility anyway needs to be thought of properly, right? When you say somebody's infallible, what are you saying? Are you saying that they have no free will to do bad? Right? Is that what infallible means? They have no free will to get things wrong? No. So I mean, the way I understand not infallibility, but the word isma in Arabic, right?
Yes.
Isma means to be protected, right? How is God
Yes.
protecting them? He's protecting them with knowledge, right? So when you have the knowledge, you can protect yourself, right? So the point is that the Prophet himself is being rebuked in the Quran for certain things, right? Like Allah says to him, why
Yes,
did
of
you give them
course.
permission, for example? لِمَا أَذِنْتَ لَهُمْ. Why did you give them permission, O Messenger of Allah? Why did you make haram what Allah has made halal? Why, these things, عَفَى اللَّهُ عَنْكَ, may God forgive you, right? Why did you give them permission until you knew for certain who was lying and who was
Yes.
telling the truth? So if that's, and of course he gave his given permission was not sort of like overturned, right? But again, so you can't say, but you were still supposed to obey them in that. So the idea of
Yes.
having leadership, right, is to have some sort of unity, right? And when you're told to obey a leader, it doesn't mean that the leader is now infallible, right? It doesn't mean that. And anyway, the case of this verse, what does it say? It says, and if you dispute in something, then return it to Allah and His Messenger, right? Whereas, I mean, if they were infallible, then the Quran would just say, and if you dispute anything, then the affair is still to ulil amr, that they are the ones who are going to
Yes.
return it to ulul amr. Why is it being said return it to Allah and His Messenger and not ulul amr? Because they are not fallible, they are not infallible, right? They're saying you have a
Yes.
dispute with them. If you can't dispute with Allah, is not going to say let's judge a dispute between you and somebody else who's infallible, right? So it doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way. I mean, even with the Prophet, we're supposed to submit to his judgment, right? ويسلموا تسليما لا فلا وربك لا يؤمنوا حتى يحكموك فيما شجر بينهم, right? By Allah, they have no faith until they make you as judge between them in what they dispute, and then they are submissive to that, right? That's a sign of their faith in the messenger, right? So if you're
Yes.
supposed to have faith in ulil amr, that verse should be like that. It shouldn't be saying that if you dispute with them, now go back to Allah and His Messenger. No, it should be saying don't dispute with them, for example, right? You're not allowed to. You should be in submission to them. So generally, it's just weak arguments, of course, and it's the problem of already having your idea, your sectarian idea, and then trying to justify it with the Quran. And that's what it comes down to. It's not something that really jumps out with tadabbur from the Quran.
Yes, that makes a lot of sense. And well, I'd like to ask this one question. Do you think Imam Ali, in particular, had Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib, do you think he was divinely appointed in the sense that God specifically guided the Prophet to appoint him? Or do you think the Prophet was performing his own ijtihad that Imam Ali was obviously the best Muslim of that time after the Prophet. So was it the Prophet's own ijtihad, or was it a divine appointment? If you get my question.
Well, I mean, I can't say for certain the reason
Yes.
behind it, right? But I can say that he definitely did that, right? What I'm absolutely certain about is the Prophet did appoint him, right? Now, was it appointment because God revealed it to him, like told him, you must appoint Ali? Um, or maybe did the Prophet himself ask, right? Oh Allah, who should I appoint after me, right? And Allah
Hmm.
told him things. So maybe it's not something that sort of like, how do I put it, that Allah didn't volunteer it,
Yes.
didn't say, okay, no, that the Prophet himself wanted to appoint somebody and he asked Allah for it. Or he's a prophet, right? He knew he was prophecy is part of what that means. Like like Allah given him knowledge of what would happen in the future, right? And so he wanted to know who should he entrust things with, or so they wouldn't go astray. So I link it a little bit to so in when it comes to the hadith of the Thaqalain, right? Because the Prophet said, "Inna al-alim al-khabir." So if I was going to like say something with some evidence, some backing to answer that question that you put, it would be that the Prophet said that Allah, when he gave that final address, stick with my, I've left two things which if you hold on to them, you will never go astray. My the two, two heavy things, one heavier than the other, the Book of Allah, the heavy thing, and the less heavy thing, my Ahlul Bayt, right? But then he said
Yes.
something interesting. He said, فَإِنَّ الْعَلِيمَ الْخَبِيرُ نَبَّأَنِي أَنَّهُمَا لَن يَفْتَرِقَا حَتَّى يَرِدَ عَلَيَّ الْحَوْض. That Allah, the Al-Khabir, the knowing, the aware one, which is the same, um, you know, words used in Surah Al-Tahrim. And this is one of the amazing things about the whole address of Ghadir Khum. The language of it was very, very linked to the Quran. Right? Even that idea of saying wali, right? "Man kuntu mawlahu fa aliyun mawla," right? That's in the Quran, right? From Zachariah's prayer, right? Um, and the same reason I think is there because the Prophet saw, again going back to what we talked about history, the Prophet knew, he saw how the nifaq was increasing, the tuluqa of Mecca came, even though he told them don't come to Medina, right? And and Allah, consoled him, don't be depressed by these people who are raising kufr. The Prophet saw people raising kufr, right? So, it
Yes.
mirrors exactly what Zakaria, when he made his dua, he said, Inni khiftu mawali min wara'i. He said, I'm afraid of those, who are behind me, basically. So when I die, these people will come up and they will corrupt and ruin everything. So give me, فَجْعَلْنِي مِن لَدُنْكَ وَلِيًّا. Right, so give me somebody from your prince, appoint a wali, somebody, and he was asking for a successor. So no, he wasn't asking for a son. Right? He says, I want you to give me a point for me, or choose for me somebody who I can put as my successor. That's basically what Zakaria was asking. But then Allah said, I will give you a son, right? But Zakaria hadn't actually made a dua for that, right? He was already, Zakaria was always saying that, my wife is barren and I've become old, so obviously I'm not going to have a son. So just, appoint a successor. Because if he had a son, that person he would put him in charge, right? He could train him and put him in charge.
Yeah.
He said, I don't have a son, so select a wali for me, right? There's also like in the verse of وَجَعَلْنَا لَنَا مِن لَدُنْكَ وَلِيًّا وَجَعَلْنَا لَنَا مِن لَدُنْكَ نَصِيرًا. That a verse in the Quran where saying, why don't you fight in the way of Allah when there are men, women, and children who scream out to Allah, help us from this place which is oppressive and tyrannical, and give us from your presence a wali, right? And give us from your presence a helper, right? So there's a lot of parallels when you look at it, right? But the point is that if I was going to say something, it would be that either the Prophet was informed, so he's informed that his Ahlul Bayt would never part from the Quran, and that's why he chose Ali. That's the reason. The actual reason behind it is because he was informed, or he knew that Ali would not part from the Quran. And when you actually study critically, you see that that is absolutely true. Ali was with the Quran always, right? And he never like parted from it at all. So that's the reason. So there's that, right? That either the Prophet was he was told, maybe he asked, oh Allah, what would happen to my family? Will they stick with the Quran? Or maybe he made that kind of dua, and Allah said yes, they will stick with the Quran until they die, basically, right? So when he gave that final address, he said, look, I've left behind two things that I can tell you about, right? That will keep you together and will keep you on the straight path, right? There's the Quran, right? And then there's my Ahlul Bayt. So if you're not sure of who are the people, because everybody's going to lay claim to, everyone's going to lay claim to the Quran, right?
Yes.
Or they will abandon it or something. So you want to see those who are look at my Ahlul Bayt, they will remain of the Quran, right? So either that, or he actually asked Allah, the same way that Zakaria did. He said, "Waj'alni min ladunka waliya." I'm afraid of the munafiqun, right? I can see them, what they're doing. I'm already sad, and Allah mentioned that in the Quran. Don't be sad of these people who are raising kufr. So maybe the Prophet made dua, said, oh Allah, I'm afraid of these people who are raising kufr after me, what they will do to the deen. فَجْعَلْنِي مِن لَدُنْكَ وَلِيًّا. So, select for me from your presence a wali, and Allah selected for him Ali. There's nothing wrong with that, right? So that's what I would say. If you were to ask like the reasons behind it, how it happened, it would be one or the other, I think.
Well, I am quite open to the fact that Imam Ali was appointed by the Prophet. I mean, I find enough evidence because Ghadir Khum is actually a mass transmitted tradition. Like I heard it's the most mass transmitted after Badr. It's basically history, confirmed history. It wouldn't be easy to reject it. Yeah, pretty much. So I suppose I wanted to ask this one final question: how does a person follow the itra of the Prophet, as in his Ahlul Bayt, without becoming a person with a Shia mindset, a Shia sectarian mindset?
Yeah. Well, again, I mean, for that you need to reassess the history. So go ahead.
I mean, when I talk about a sectarian Shia mindset, I mean a 12er mindset, a Zaydi mindset, an Ismaili mindset, because obviously these sects, they have constructed their entire theologies outside of the Quran, based on narrations, based on their scholarly works. I mean, it's not exactly completely in line with the Quran. So how does a person follow the Ahlul Bayt in the Quran without becoming a Shi'i in that sense, in a sectarian sense?
I understand what you mean. So look, I mean, the Prophet himself, he never constructed a fiqh, right? Or a aqidah for people or any of that, right? And neither did Ali, right? He didn't do any of that kind of stuff, right? Neither did any of the others. Anyway, what it comes down to is, again, just reassessing the history, right? Reassessing the history.
Yes.
And you will start, when you start to, reassess the history and start to just pick up, you will start to see really, at certain points, you will see how they behaved and how they acted. And it's more like an inspiration rather than it's something. When you say follow the itra now, it's sort of like we in one way we can't, right? In the same way, like we can't like follow the Prophet now because he's not with us now, right? But you can, again, just as you would learn from the actions of the Prophet and how he acted, right? Once you have your history sort of like cleaned up, right, and your what you attribute to the Prophet and what you don't, then you can start to take guidance from how he acted, how he behaved, right? In the same way, it comes with the family of the Prophet. It's not going to be in the way that the Shia do, right? It's not going to be like. I mean, let me give you an example, right?
Yes.
I'll give you an example of that, right? So this is a very pertinent example when it comes to Imam Ali. So Imam Ali was in I think it was in it was while he was in Kufa, yes, while he was in Kufa, right? And of course he's in charge of everybody and the leader of the army, etc. And they've had the issue with the Khawarij, right? The Khawarij Hururiya and those groups, right? So while he was there, some people came to him with a man who they've captured, right? Some of his army. They got this guy and they brought him to him and said to him, and they said to him, oh, yeah, Ali, this is the man of the Khawarij. They say, okay, well, why are you bringing him to me? Ali asked, why did you capture him? What do you want me to do with him? And they said to him, kill him. And he said, what? Kill him when he hasn't done he hasn't killed anybody else? And said, okay, then they said to him, okay, then fahbisu, then lock him up. He said, why should I lock him up? What did he do? And then they were sort of dumbfounded by that. They said to him, okay, then you tell us, what should we do with him? And he said, Khallu sabila rajul. He said, get out of the man's way, let him go. Right? Yes, he's from the Khawarij, but has he actually done anything? He hasn't done anything, so just get out of his way, leave him alone. Right? And they let him go, and he went his way. I mean, they thought that just because this guy who has the same opinion from his even he was in his region, right? He wasn't actually of the Khawarij themselves, but he was speaking like them, right? He had exactly the same opinions as them. He thought that Ali was a kafir and that he'd renegated by not judging by the book of Allah or whatever, the things that they thought, right? And so when they saw him speaking like that and having these kind of views, they grabbed him and they brought him to Ali, and he said, look, I'm not going to do anything with this man. He hasn't actually done anything. All he's done is expressed what he thinks, right? So that's an instance, right? From that you can learn something from that, right? Just that clemency. Another example, it's in the seerah, right? In the seerah, and this is something also you start to see if you start to study the seerah carefully. You start to see that Imam Ali was with the Prophet like all the time, like in most situations. So this is the example of Hatim al-Ta'i. Have you heard of Hatim al-Ta'i?
I don't recall it. No.
So he's basically the person who in Arab sort of like, not mythology because he was real, but he's like the epitome. How do you say the word in English? The most generous person. So whenever people want to do a method or talk about generosity, they talk about Hatim al-Ta'i because he was exceedingly generous, right? Exceedingly generous. Yes. And so, but he of course died before Islam. But his son Adi was a Christian, right? He's from the Christian tribes as well, and the Prophet eventually ends up capturing in one of the battles between them, capturing Adi's sister, right? His sister. So the Prophet was, he had the capture. She was one of like the prisoners, basically. She was prisoner, and so he would pass by, right? And she would like plead to the Prophet, like saying, "Oh, Muhammad, please free me. My father was ever a generous person, and he would be generous to people and stuff like this." And the Prophet would smile and basically say some consolatory words, and then nothing, and then he would go. And then he did that, and this happened next day and the day after that, right? And then the third day, right, the Prophet was walking past, right, and she didn't say it. She was like, okay, if I've asked like 3 times and he hasn't done anything, right? He hasn't freed me or anything. And then from the seerah, what it says, a man standing next to him started making signals to her. Ask him again, right? And so she asked again. And then the Prophet smiled and said, okay, you can go and tell your brother that he's safe. He can come, right? And so she did that. And before she left, she asked, who was that man who signaled to me to ask again? And who was it? It was Ali, right? So again, it shows the mentality that he had, right? He knew that the Prophet would let her go, right? And so he's like, ask him again. I was like, I know him. He'll let you go, right? But the Prophet wanted her to stay a little bit longer, just so she could see, right? So that's why a few times he didn't let her go, right? Anyway, I babbled on a bit about that as well, I think.
No. Those were very beautiful stories, I must say, mashallah. Now, I guess that's all for my questions. I would like to thank you a lot for taking them all. May God bless you. And I guess that's it. And please do make dua that I find my way, inshallah. And may God bless you.
Allah
Bless you all,
barik
inshallah.
Ameen. And welcome anytime, my friend. Okay. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum. Wa alaikum assalam.
Alaikum assalam. Okay, I still have some other people backstage. I'll bring them on. I forgot, maybe I left this on too long. The other questions in the chat, I'm going to have to get back to them later if everybody doesn't mind. Assalamu alaikum, Ali, Riza, I am HMS. Imran, assalamu alaikum, Adriana, always a pleasure. Good to see all you all, Nasir. All right, let's bring on, says Sayyid Professor. Okay, I don't see the rest of the name. All right, Sayyid Professor of Qur'an, even better.
Assalamu alaikum, brother.
Alaikum assalam, how are you?
You remember me?
Yes, I do. I remember your voice, yes.
Okay. Brother, I'm writing, I already published a book in Amazon. Give the link over here.
Okay.
Yeah, you know that the book name is Allah Confirmed the Bible is from Him.
Okay.
And Allah acknowledged the Bible as a guidance and ruling authority for Jew and Christian. So, but our Muslims do not believe in Bible. Even Allah told us to we must believe in previous scripture that is from Allah. And Allah also tells Christian and Jew, you must follow the Bible. It's clearly say if you do not if do not follow, they are disobedient people. And another verse Allah say when Jew coming to the Prophet Muhammad for advice. So Allah gave a verse why these people are coming to you, Prophet, while they have Torah in they have the judgment in Torah.
Yes, they have the Torah, in which is the hukum of Allah and the light. Yes.
Yeah. So, but our Muslims just totally rejected Bible. You know, even Quran mention about the corruption in the Bible, the way they read the Bible. You know, they say something is not in the Bible. So this Allah mentioned everything. Allah knows the Bible had been corrupted. So, but Muslims say Bible is corrupted, so they totally reject the Bible. Totally 100% they reject it. Allah said that there is a light and guidance in the Bible to follow. So I'm writing book. It's
I've put it in the chat now, and I've highlighted it on the screen now so everybody can see it. So it's on Amazon, yes? Is it an ebook or a
no, it's paperback. There is a ebook also. You can buy it cheap. That is available. But I will suggest you, because I'm going to update this today. So if you are going to plan to buy, just wait for 4 or 5 days. Then you will get the updated book.
Updated version. All right. Second edition, huh?
Not second, just updated version.
Updated edition. All right. Okay. Brilliant. Excellent. How long did it take you to write?
How long I take it to write? This book I got fast. This book I take to 2-3 months.
All right. Okay. Nice.
I have total 3 books in Amazon. One is first book was an introduction to your creator. Second subtitle God Resume, and another subtitle a roadmap to heaven. A roadmap to heaven.
All right. So, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Very nice. Very nice. This book that you have here about the Bible, the Qur'an confirming the Bible. Yes, that's the title. What's the title?
Allah
how long is it? Like how many pages?
Yeah, this one is 335. 335.
335 pages.
Yeah.
335. All right. Okay. So it's a sizable book. MashaAllah.
Yeah.
All right. Okay.
Yeah. You know, you read it. It's a total 100%. You cannot reject the Bible. We cannot. Allah require. It is requirement from Allah to believe in it, and Allah knows the Bible was corrupted. Allah knows that. Even Allah mentioned in the Quran, they have they wrote with their own hand and say it's from Allah. So corruption, Allah mentioned it, but still Allah said to Christian and Jew, you follow those. There is a light and guidance for you and judgment
even
for
then,
you.
even then. I mean, I think it's pretty clear anyway. If you, because within Christianity, there's a lot of course, guidance and light, right? So it's had that effect anyway, right? And there are a lot of amazing verses in the Bible, right, which clearly mirror the Qur'an and provide guidance, and even things which are not, even there are things which don't necessarily mirror verses of the Quran, but of course there are still guidance in it. So in your book, do you actually cite examples from the Bible of that?
Oh yeah, yes. There is a similarity between Quran and the Bible verses, similar verses. Okay.
I mean, do you provide examples of the guidance in the Bible? So, do you quote verses of the Bible and say, look, this is the guidance? Quote some other verses of the Quran and say, look, this is part of the guidance and light and etc. Do you do that?
Yes.
Do you have a list? Do you have a list of?
I collected 3,000 similarity between Quran and the Bible. 3,000. Yeah.
3,000.
Yeah.
But your book is only 335 pages. How are you fitting it?
What's that?
You said your book is only 335 pages, yes?
Yeah. But after that, I deleted 2,000. Deleted because it's going to a lot of pages. So I delete to 2,000. Only I keep 1,000.
Delete them. Put them in another book.
Yeah. I will make another book similarity between Quran and Bible. I can do that. Make it totally without anything, just verses.
All right. Okay.
Yeah, I could do that. Yeah, I plan to do that one.
Yeah. Okay. Brilliant. Excellent. MashaAllah.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you.
Yeah. But when you read it, Bible verses and the Quran similarity, you're gonna say this is nobody gonna say this is different God. Even Muslim gonna have to accept it. Bible is a word of God because there is a verses and Allah said about the abrogation. We bring the similarity or better than that.
Or better than it, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So when you read it, all 3,000 verses I collected, so you're gonna see that they are better than previous scripture. So,
or similar.
Yeah, and similar.
Yeah. Yes. All right. Excellent. Thank you so much for sharing that. All right. The link for anybody who wants it, it's in the comments in the chat.
Yeah, wait for at least 4 or 5 days.
Yeah,
I'm gonna update it.
Yeah, he says he's gonna update it. All right, brilliant. All right. Yeah, I wish I could get up to speed and sort of maybe try to publish something myself, but we'll see. Maybe later.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You have a lot of knowledge about it. We need to, we have to reform Muslims.
Yeah.
That's my main intention. I do not reject hadiths. I accept if hadiths sound good. I mean, looks good. Makes sense. I do not reject, even if those hadiths are not be true. It doesn't matter to me.
Yeah. I have the same mentality. Right?
Even when Allah says in the Quran, whatever good is from Allah. If whatever knowledge Allah gave, good knowledge is from Allah.
Yeah, I mean a more pertinent verse is الذين يستمعون القول فيتبعون أحسنه. Right, the verse talks about those who, when they hear a speech, they follow the best of it. So from everything that you hear, you listen and you follow the best of what you hear, right?
Yeah.
The most beautiful of what you hear.
All the good knowledge come from Allah, regardless is in the Vedas, Gita, in Bible, or in Buddhist, whatever Buddha said. All good knowledge is from Allah.
بيدك الخير. Yes.
Yeah.
Ameen. Ameen. Okay. Jazakallah khair. Thank you so much.
Thank you, brother, for taking me.
Ameen. Anytime. Assalamu alaikum wa
Wa
rahmatullah.
alaikum salam.
Okay. All right. Okay. That was our brother there. Again, the link to his book I put in the description. But he says to wait a few days because he wants to update it if you intend to buy it. Okay, I have here Bell B. Ibrahim, I suppose.
Hello.
Assalamu alaikum. B. Ibrahim.
Walaikum
Just
salam.
that, huh? Walaikum salam.
Thank you so much. I really love your channel, and I've watched it for actually a few years, and it really taught me a lot and helped me to just look at Islam very, very differently. However, I keep having a reoccurring question in my head for like so many years over and over and over again, and I would like to ask you this question if it's okay. It has to do with human suffering, if that's okay.
Yeah, go ahead. I hope
So.
it can handle it. I mean, if it's something you've been wrestling for 2 years, that's like, damn. Okay.
Well, not 2 years. Basically, it's been going on for longer than 2 years, actually. It's like a
Even
reoccurring
longer.
question. Yeah. I just don't really understand this thing right here, which is that sometimes I just find myself blaming Allah for so many things throughout my life that has just been almost a series of misfortune and just unfortunate events and circumstances, all the way from childhood to adulthood. Stuff like abuse, stuff like neglect, stuff like a lot of very traumatic things throughout my entire life. And then I see people around me, like some of my peers, and like it's like it's like they kind of have like good luck, you know? It's kind of like
Yeah.
their life is just blessed in so many ways, and I'm just like,
Mm.
damn, bro, I just want to
Why?
be you so much. Like, and yeah,
Yeah.
and it's just kind of like then when I look at myself, I'm just like, damn, I'm struggling with this, I'm struggling with that, and it's just
Mm.
like so much misfortune and trauma and very
Mm.
bad stuff happening throughout my life over and over again. And sometimes it's like a cloud of bad luck and misfortune
Yeah.
that just follows me over and over and over again. And I can't help but just be angry with Allah, even though
Mm.
it's like I know people like to say, oh, well, you know, it's the actions of other people and we're a test for each other. And I'm just like, your test
Yeah.
is so happy, you're so smiley, and you're just so
Yeah.
good, everything good for you. It's just like,
Yeah.
it's just so like mind-boggling. I just can never help myself not be upset with God, especially as a
Yeah.
Muslim. It's like growing up, I was told that everything comes from Allah, good and bad comes from Allah. And then I'm
Mm.
just like, so is Allah to blame for everything bad in my life then? You get what I mean?
Mm. Yeah, I get what you mean. Yeah, no, that's a difficult one, my friend. I mean, I know people who are exactly like that. I mean, I'm not unlike that myself, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, I've got a friend who basically everything he does seems to like he's like been on the verge of being like a millionaire like so many times. There's something he does, and then it falls apart, right? From some small thing or this or something like that, and just it's like this idea that he has complete bad luck. I mean, I always used to remember that this verse. The brother was now talking about the Bible. I think this is a biblical verse or idea, right? That to those who have shall be given, and from those who have not shall be taken away. Right. So like some people who already have, they end up being given more, right? And there are some who seem to don't have, and then even what they do have, it gets taken away, right? So they get even. So, and I don't have any ready answer for that, right? I mean, the thing which I found the most solace in sort of like is just having a longer view of sort of just where we are. So, two things mainly, all right? So, firstly, I've come to see actually that a lot of the people who you think are are happy and have it all, and it seems like their life isn't so hard, right? They actually do have a lot of things which you just don't know about, and and they won't let it be known or seen, right? So there's that, right? So so sometimes when I see people who seem like everything is fine and it's all working out for them, and I'm thinking to myself, on me, I don't know. And then and this happened a few times. I've been converse with people who I used to think like their life was like perfect, right? And I end up hearing about, when I get close to them and speak more, and I end up hearing about the most horrendous things in their life that's happened to them, right? You mentioned abuse, like things like that as well, right? Some really heavy-handed, bad abuse and this, and that they're suffering from mental issues, and you'd never know. You really would never know, because they struggle every day to put on this face that they show to the world, and then they get out there and then they slug it out, right? So you'd never know. So you have that. I mean, it's very difficult sometimes to compare yourself with other people like that, because you just don't see it, you don't know it. I mean, the other day I remember seeing. It just came to mind now, just on X or Twitter. You have that guy. What's his name? Matt. Works for the Daily Wire, right? And he has this. And everybody said him leave because he's controlled by Ben Shapiro or something. What's his name? Matt Walsh or something. The guy who
Matt Walsh,
yeah, the guy who asked around what is a woman? That guy. What is a woman guy? Yes. So there was this tweet that he put out, and it was like it came on my feed because it was retweeted. Quote tweeted by another Muslim who was saying, I used to be like that because I had no faith in God, and etc. etc. I'm like, okay, what is this? And I check it, and it's him talking about how he has an amazing girlfriend. He makes more than 450,000 a year, and he's this, and then he says, but I'm depressed and suffer from anxiety and bouts of really bad anxiety, right? And so you'd never know that, right? From even everything, seeing clips of him around, you'd never, without him admitting that on this tweet, you'd never know that about him, right? Because he comes out there and he sort of like speaks about social issues or political issues, right? And obviously he's making a lot of money and the rest of it. Yeah, so you wouldn't see it. So there's that aspect. Another aspect which for me, when I think about these things, has given me solace. I mean, I don't know if you've. I mean, you probably said you watched this channel a few times. I've spoken about NEDs a few times, right?
Yeah.
So near-death experiences and what people see in them and experience in them, and even among that is also a recurring theme, which you might not like hearing it, but there's a recurring theme that comes up, which is that there's in some way there's a kind of life planning that happens before coming to this world, right? So there are times where, I mean, of course, once you're here, you don't remember it, right? But the point is that pre coming to this world, you sort of said, okay, you would say that some people chose certain things to experience in this world because they thought they could handle it. If I can handle this, because it's a bigger chance to grow, right? So when you have so much adversity in your life and things don't go right and stuff like that, and you are able to have that acceptance or able to have that patience or whatever it is, just that it's a big opportunity to grow. There's more to sort of like push against, right? It's like lifting weights, right? You want to have the big muscles, you have to lift the big weights, right? Whereas if you're light, you're working with light weights, you're only going to ever become so strong. You're not going to reach the higher levels of strength, right? So there's that idea as well. I mean, I don't know how much you would take to that. I mean, I sort of accept it as far as the idea of we sort of choosing our parents, so to speak, or the bodies that we would be born into. I think that does happen. That we, before coming into this world, we would sort of like choose. I'd like to be born to this parent, in that body, to those parents, and even though that body's going to be born maybe a little bit deformed, or it's going to be born like this or like this, we know that beforehand, right? Or I'll be born to this abusive family, right? Because I think I can take it and I'll be able to grow in that. Right? And then we come over here, of course, we're born as, as babies, not knowing nothing, right? But our soul is there, right? Our soul beforehand is there. Because I don't believe, I mean, the soul before coming into this world, if you try to think about it, was it a baby soul, right? What is it like? Somebody, our souls knew nothing, right? We had no ability to communicate, no understanding. We no, right? So I mean, we have even the verses of Alastu bi rabbikum, am I not your Lord? Where Allah said, He took out the sort of the souls of Bani Adam, and He asked them, am I not your Lord? He said, yes, we testify, right? So that's something that we as Muslims know, right? We believe that happened, but of course, most of us don't remember it or don't know it. I mean, I've met a few people who do, to be honest. So I remember this one girl I used to know. She was sort of like very hardcore Salafi, and at the time, I was much more into the Sufi threads. I wasn't like the Qur'an centric person that people know that, but I was more in the Sufi circles, right? And I sort of helped her get out of the Salafi thing, but she used to tell me, look, I can remember this. Right? This is one of the things which is always in my, it's there, and she could never describe it. Alastu bi rabbika, am I not your Lord? She said, I don't have the words to say, but I can just tell you this actually happened, right? I remember it, and I've always been able to remember it since the baby. Like it's not like a memory which has something which I remember, right? Something which it's always been there, like something which I remember it from. And she said, I used to think everybody remembers it, right? And I've actually met another person who became Muslim because of this verse, because he could actually remember it, right? He said, yeah, I know this is true, and that's why I ended up believing in the Quran, right? And there's somebody else who actually came to remember it. So he didn't have that thing all his life, and then suddenly it's like when when there's something that you forget, and then one day you remember it, and it's like it's like, yeah, how did I forget this? So there's that. So I think we do have some of that beforehand, maybe, right? And that plays into it. And in terms of like bad luck or good luck or these things, I mean, we need to remember there are angels involved in this world. I mean, one of the tenets of faith, they say, right, is to have faith in the angels, right? And most of the time we don't think about that, but angels are active in the world, right? I remember that YouTube channel, what's it called? Blogging Theology, right? The guy who has like that white guy, Paul Williams, who he reads a lot of excerpts from different books, and he does a lot of good like interviews and podcasts. One of them was he read extracts from a video about angels, right? And just anecdotes upon anecdotes about angels and how they are active in the world and what they do and what they don't do, right? And and where people like seem to have that, right? Some things happen, right? Remember Hassan al-Malik, he mentioned, and somebody that he met, some Saudi guy who wanted to become like, because atheism and ilhad and things like that were growing very rapidly in Saudi because of the the Salafi Wahhabi environment. This person, he's like, I'm done with religion, right? But he said, I can't like become a complete atheist because he remembers himself very clearly. Something happened to him in his youth, right? He was playing football on the street as most kids do, right? And the football went out into the road, and he ran out to get it, just as a car like almost smashed into him, and he felt like I felt an actual hand grab me from behind and pull me back, right? And then when he looked around, there's literally nobody there, nobody for like not miles, but there's empty, right? So this one thing has prevented me from becoming an atheist. Right? If it wasn't for this, I would be a complete atheist, because I don't see anything but this, something which I just can't deny happened to me, and it was as real as anything, right? So angels are active. So when it comes to like this idea of like bad luck and good luck, sometimes I wonder if that's what it comes down to, right? That there are angels at play to make some people's life more, sort of like easier, and other people's lives more difficult, for whatever reason. If it's because things that we chose, right? We wanted this before coming to this world, or if it's just, as again, it is in the end, this world is an ibtila. So I don't know. I mean, I don't have a straight answer for you for this. I mean, these are just things which I've thought of, and they've sort of like in some ways given me some solace. But you just have to basically, well, I mean, what are we going to do otherwise? Being angry with God is not a, what does that do, right? It's like, being angry at, like, hitting yourself against a brick wall, right? The brick wall will never break and your head will be smashed beforehand, right? Which is a very desolate way of looking at it, because it's like saying that, Allah is uncaring or things like that. But no, I mean, again, one of the things which, if you, listen to some of these NEDs and stuff, from that perspective, I think they show you just how much regard Allah does have for us, right? But it's just a very short span of lifetime. I mean, very quick. I mean, I'm not sure how old you are, right? But if you're like, let's say you're in your 20s or almost, or 30s, you've lived almost like more than a third of your life, almost half of your life. It's already
20s.
20s, right?
Yeah, my 20s, yeah.
You're still okay, yeah. You're still kind of okay, yeah? So maybe like a quarter, right? You're like a
Yeah.
quarter. You've still got a long way. So you've got a lot more life to go, right? But it's also going to be very quick. I mean, before you know it, you'll be like 40, and you're like, okay, where did things go? How did I do? So
Yeah.
being young, at least you're in a better position than others who are feeling like you are feeling, right?
Yeah.
And they're feeling like you're feeling at 40 or 45 or whatever, right?
Yeah,
So
that's the thing with the NEDs. Wait, can you hear me? Hello?
yeah, I can hear you. I can hear you.
Oh, okay, good. Thank you so much. So that's the thing with the NEDs. I actually at first didn't believe it, but then when I continued watching it over and over again, and over the course of like a few years, because like I always kept going back to these like dark thoughts, like I don't think God cares about me. Why would
Yeah,
God do this to me? Does God like to torture me? All these other kind of like really dark thoughts. I remember
yeah.
just like going back to like your video, because somebody sent me your video. It was like first the video on the Qur'anic Islam thing, and then I just went down a rabbit hole and started binge watching your videos. And then it
Mhm.
was the one with the NED, and I think like you showed it was like a clip of another video, and it was this woman, I think she's like Jewish or something like that, and she had
Mhm.
a whole NED experience. And when she was talking about it, I don't know what it is, but it just gave me a lot of clarity, for lack of
Mhm.
better words. And it just, I don't know, just put me like at rest. I was just like, I'm
Yeah,
dumb
yeah,
then.
yeah.
My soul is very stupid. Like if I actually chose this life, I was a really dumb soul.
Well, it's early days yet. You're not sure about that, right? So maybe you will actually be thankful for that later on, right? So I mean, even look, I mean, I even listen to you now, mashallah. You're still, you've mentioned all this, but you're obviously still kind of cheerful. You're smiling, and and you're thinking about things, right? You're thinking about
Yeah,
things which you never would have before, right?
yeah,
Um, but I'm not sure. I mean, the real reason why I mentioned NEDs, right, is I do think, like, when you watch a few of them, it really does give you this sort of like, it gives you this almost like a real sense of some of the things which, at least for me, that I read in the Quran, in terms of like how Allah speaks about His caringness for people, and look at people with the eye of mercy and things like that, and just understanding also that it is. I mean, every NED, they say, like, what's the purpose of life? And they say it sounds cheesy and corny, but it is to just to have love for everybody around you and for things around you, right? That's what's going to remain, right?
yeah. They
Um,
all
no
say
one-
that. They all say
yeah,
that. Like
they all say that we're here to learn how to love, right? That we're here to learn how to, be careful, be as in full of care for others, right? Full of regards for others and stuff like that. And they all come away like very unmaterialistic, right? So
yeah,
when you think about it in the very long run, I mean, most of the stuff that you would say, okay, my life was hard, or this is not going right, or this is going. I mean, these are all things which are going to just fade away and be gone, right? The material of things, or the the thing that didn't go right, and the thing that you missed out on, and these things they're gonna be gone. What's gonna be left is what's seeped into you, right? What's come into your soul, right? That's gonna that ends up being the sum of what we are, right? When we leave this world, the sum of what we are is what we carry in our hearts, right? I guess that's when it comes to that verse, إِلَّا مَنْ أَتَى اللَّهَ بِقَلْبٍ سَلِيمٍ, except he who comes to God with a sound heart, right? So, and the last piece of advice would be more practical, and this sort of like comes from my more Sufi background. I mean, the dhikr and remembrance of Allah, it really does set the heart at rest. So when it comes to all of these things, mention the Quran, of course, أَلَا بِذِكْرِ اللَّهِ تَطْمَئِنُّ الْقُلُوبُ, truly in the remembrance of Allah, hearts find rest. Now that might be difficult to see when you're sort of like, you're trying not to be angry at God, right?
Yeah.
But it's like, okay, how can I force myself to remember God when I'm angry at God, and things like this, right? But there is a sense of like, it's something which it sort of like cleans out that muck, right? When you actually sit and with meditation, right? And even this idea of like sitting there and even saying it, right? Say, oh, Allah, if you sit by yourself, say, Allah, I'm feeling angry at you, right? And I don't want to be, and I don't know why. And, having that sort of like meditative, speaking out to God. Actually do it, right? I mean, if you're angry with God, tell him, like, I'm angry with you, right?
Yeah.
And you might be surprised that, that helps to actually take some of that away, right? And just because you're angry at God doesn't mean he's being angry back, right? You can think of it. Sometimes I think of that way, right? Somebody's sitting there saying, "Oh, Allah, I'm angry at you," and Allah is smiling down at him. But I'm not angry at you, right? I'm not. There's no. Well, Allah's not going to be angry with you with like the thing, because of the things that are done in your life, and you think God is angry at you because of them, right? No, I'm angry and upset with doing. With what you do with people, how you are towards people, right? The content of your heart, right? These are the things that please Allah or don't, right? And you can have somebody who's full of anger at Allah, but this person is, when he passes a poor person on the street, he smiles at them, or gives them a dollar or whatever it is, and Allah is looking at that, and he's more than happy with this person who is angry at him, right? So we need to remember that Allah is not like us, right? It doesn't respond to our anger with anger, right? Just because if you're angry at Allah, no, that it doesn't work that way, right? I mean, Allah doesn't even have anger, right? I mean, I mentioned in that, God loves me, God loves me not, right? Who God loves and who God loves not, right? But then Allah says he's angry, or sorry, he hates anybody, right? There are those whom he loves and those he does not love. And they can change to become those whom he loves. So I mean, again, there's no really hard, fast answer to have for you. I mean, you just have to sort of, again, try to keep a level head, I suppose, with these sort of things, and be accepting sort of those sort of feelings. So you're saying, you're trying very hard to not hate God, right? Sometimes you can just accept it, right? Accept that this is how I'm feeling right now, right? And that will be a start to helping it dissipate. Because, okay, yes, this is how I am right now, and I recognize it's wrong or whatever, but it's a truth, right? In the end, right? It is something which you're experiencing, and maybe journaling will help as well, or something you can in a couple of years' time you can look back at these thoughts, and also maybe you'll never know, like in like 20 years' time, this is you'll be able to maybe advise somebody who's going through what you're going right now, right? Because inshallah you will live until that age, right? And I doubt that when you reach the age of 40 or 40 above or 50, you're still going to be feeling that way, right? But you'll be able to look back on a journal that you wrote in these years, and remember those thoughts and feelings that you had, and be able to sort of like address them better. Maybe you'll end up being somebody who can actually give a better answer to somebody else who asks than I am giving right now, right?
Right.
So think of things in the longer span. Don't be too hard on yourself, right? And you know, be you can't be as forgiving of yourself as Allah is of you, right?
Right.
You won't be able to do that, but be forgiving of yourself as much as possible.
Thank you so much. I actually wanted to say something else as well. I
Yeah.
was wondering, are there Muslim scholars who talked about what you talked about, like the possibility that in the life before this life that we probably chose this world? And I asked this because actually, it was a few months ago. Like, that actually circled back in my head. This whole thing
Mm,
of like perhaps our souls chose this life, and then did a little bit of like digging and stuff like that, and I found that in
mm,
some non-Abrahamic faiths, like the Yoruba faith, I think so. I was reading about it. Apparently, they traditionally in their non-Abrahamic faiths believe that
mm,
their souls before this life chose this
mm.
life and chose
Yeah.
to come to this earth and
Mm,
knew the trials that they'll go through, but they chose it
mm,
anyways. So I was
mm.
wondering, so when I was reading that about like some other religions do believe that, I was thinking, do we have scholarship in Islam that talks about this?
I'm not sure because first of all, I mean, I don't. I mean, I'm not as versed on whole like library of Islamic stuff. I mean, if anybody spoke about it, it'll probably be some of the the more esoteric people of the sort of Sufis, like maybe Ibn Arabi would speak. This sounds like something Ibn Arabi would definitely be up his alley. He might speak of this. Um, like the world before. I mean, he does speak about the things beforehand and the world before and things like this. But in terms of, I don't know really if there's any scholars which do really speak about that. But yes, even in the other religions and stuff, I don't know which religions speak about that, to be honest. I mean, I
Mm,
had a very nice, I don't know where it went, it was such a cool book. I had this really nice folk tale book, right? I don't know. It was in my house somewhere, but it was or maybe I read it. So I don't know. But it was like a Buddhist tale.
mm,
It was really nice. And the book, it starts off basically talking about this girl, who lives her life in some remote village somewhere in near the mountains, and she's talking about, and her life is hard. She's pulling water and she's doing this, and she's always wishing, I wish that I hadn't been here. Why couldn't I have been, living in a different place? Or my parents up. I wish I'd been born somewhere else. And so talking about that, and so the story starts off just talking about her, and how she grew up, and then eventually she ends up like living her whole life in the village. She marries, has kids, etc., and eventually she dies, right? And then, but the story then continues, right? Because of course this is going to be like a reincarnation kind of story, right? And the story has a picture of just her sort of like as a light in like darkness, right? And then a voice speaks to her, saying to her, um, where would you, I think it was what, where would you like to go or something? Would you like to live a life? And she's like, yes, I would like to do it. And then she's shown like millions of lights, which are basically galaxies. Okay, which galaxy would you like to be in? And she picks one which seems to call to her. She says, well, that one looks good. And she picks the galaxy. And she says, okay, now she's shown all of the planets within that galaxy which she could be born in. And she looks around and she sees, all of the stars which have planets which she could be born into. And she looks at one star which she thinks looks beautiful and calls and says, I want to be in that one. And she picks that planet. And she says, in this around this planet, around this star, there's only one planet which has life on it. So, and in this, you can, here are all the people who are living in there. Which area would you like to be born in? She says, I'd like to be born in this area. She picks that area. She says, in this area, there's all of these different towns and villages, right? Which village would you like to would you like to live in? Would you be born into? And she picks a village. And she's asked, which of in this village there are so many mothers who are pregnant, right? Some were are pregnant with girls, some are pregnant with boys. Which one would you like to be? And she picks a mother who's pregnant with a girl. And then the last page of that is basically like the beginning of it, right? A girl is born in the village of of whatever, and it's the same place basically. So she ends up coming back to the same village, which all her life she like said, "Why am I born here? Why am I here? I wish I had been born somewhere else or whatever." So it's like I was surprised that this is a children's story, but it was. But I guess it's for that people from that culture, right? It was like a Buddhist tale or something. So I don't know. Maybe it's I don't know what was the name of the religion you mentioned, which has these beliefs. The
It's
research.
like it said that it was like the Ifa religion from the Yoruba faith, the traditional
Okay.
Yoruba faith.
Yoruba faith. Okay, I've never
Yeah.
heard of it, to be honest. I've never heard of it. But again, to answer your question, I don't know of any scholars which talk about this sort of stuff. I haven't heard of anybody. Um, if I take a gamble at saying somebody who might be willing to say things like this, it will probably be like someone like Ibn al-Arabi or Sihr Wirdi,
Mm,
maybe. Yeah, yeah,
thank you.
people like that.
Yeah, thank you so much. I was also kind of just wondering as well. Um, like I was just having like a number of thoughts regarding Islam and many Muslims today, and I just can't help but think that maybe I'm just alone in this, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like the spirituality in many Muslims today is kind of dead in many
Yeah,
ways. Yeah, it's kind of odd because like I would just sometimes come across some things that like Sheikh Khalid Abu al-Fadl would say, and then he would sound like just like very much like deep in spirituality and stuff like that. And then then I look at what is in mainstream Islam, and I'm just like, there's almost like no spirituality. It's almost like secularism
mm.
with an Islamic name on it.
yeah. That is true. That is definitely true. Um, that is definitely true. I mean, in many ways, um, it's kind of sort of expected, right? I mean, everybody's becoming more secular. The world has moved that way, right? Um, but also, it's a long culmination of things, I think, because when I was young, I mean, you're in your 20s, I'm in my 40s. When I was young, the Salafi Wahhabi da'wah was ripping across the Muslim world, right? And it sort of like created this break from the traditions of spirituality, right, which were more in line with the Sufis, right, the Sufi traditions. So early day Wahhabis, right, and Salafis, it was mostly anti-Sufi, right? It was hardcore anti-Sufi. Now they've forgotten about the Sufis, so they're more anti-Shia because of after the Iranian Revolution, basically, right? All the Salafi stuff, they all became like more anti-Shia than anti-Sunni, right? So now you have the most polemics from the Sunnis and Salafis, um, mostly against the Shia, right? So I don't know. That led a little bit, it gave a little bit of a resurgence to the spirituality aspect, but not that much. I mean, it was people like Hamza Yusuf in the West, the English-speaking world, who helped revive sort of the traditional, what he called traditional Islam, right? Which is basically the Ash'ari, Aqidah and the four madhahib and Tasawwuf, Tazkiyah, to be part of that. And he helped revive that in a lot of people, right? Um, but it was that break, I think, where a lot of people abandoned all of the sort of like and there were things that should have been abandoned, of course, within the Sufi practices and stuff like that. There were, a lot of the Sufi circles end up descending into cults, pretty much, right? Most of them, a lot of them do, especially the sort of like smaller ones. But they end up becoming like cults and become, exploitative and things like this. But there's undeniably a whole wealth of spiritual tradition. I mean, poetry and 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 amazing poetry, which just gives you a taste of how people felt, right? How they were more connected in their spirituality. You have people like Rumi, right? His poetry is absolutely amazing. And you had the actual, Sufism and a spiritual path was embedded in most, sort of like it was part of the fabric of Islam, of how you wayfare towards towards Allah, right? The process of tazkiyah, of purifying the nafs. People understood more what it is, the nafs, the concept of like the ego or the nafs, which causes you towards evil, and then you slowly try to improve that or purify that, right? And the whole ways of doing it, and the idea of going against yourself, right, until it submits, right? Fighting the tools of fighting the nafs, right, and polishing the heart, right, until you start to actually sort of like really taste the spirituality, where it really starts to hit you deep, right?
Yeah.
And those are of course all there, but this disconnect happened because of the sort of the Salafi Wahhabi wave. But you can find it again. So I mean, if you're asking about what I would recommend to sort of like start you on that, I mean, get community, get involved with a community of people who are likewise thinking about these sort of things, right? And the only ones you'll find really are the Sufi circles and things like that, right? Just like at the same time cautious while there, right? But
Yeah.
yeah, so have some caution at the same time, but get involved with them, right? Read some of the books which have been written on that, right? A great book to read, I think, is Martin Ling's. He has like a biography book about, and half it's biography book and half it's like more about the whole like to solve and things. But it's an excellent book just to read. Even the biography part is riveting. But it's Sufi Saint of the 20th Century. That's it. Sufi Saint of the 20th Century by
Yes.
Martin Lings. Yeah, Sheikh. He's basically about Sheikh Ahmed Al Alawi, but it speaks a lot about the spiritual aspects. Another great book which I've recommended before on this channel is the Degrees of the Soul by Al Shibrawi, which actually is like more like a manual of what to actually do for the spiritual path, right? But it's very short, but very, very to the point.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much. May Allah bless you like immensely. I mean,
Jazakallah khair. You too, my friend. You too.
thank you.
I mean. So,
I
sorry, what was
mean,
your name? Your name is, and we've got here B.
Ibrahim.
Ibrahim.
My name's
Ibrahim?
Ibrahim, but like my social media name is Bel Ibrahim. So it's just like
Okay.
I put like Bel then Brahim. So yeah,
Okay. Okay. Brilliant. Okay. Well, Jazakallah khair for coming on, Ibrahim.
thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Okay. Take care of yourself. Assalamu alaikum. All right. All right. I wish I could get back to the chat. Seems to be moving on. Hopefully, you guys are having fun in it. But I've got a couple more people backstage. I'll bring them on. Dragonlight. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum assalam.
Alaikum assalam. How are you?
I'm good, bro. Thank you. How are you?
Good.
I have like a question in like a verse that I was reading before. So it's when God said that He sent 100,000. He sent Prophet Yunus to 100,000 people, or more. That's like what the verse I think said.
Yeah.
Oh yazidun. I don't know what does that really mean. Like, is it just an estimate or what is it?
Yeah, it's basically that we sent them to like 100,000 or a little bit more, right? Or a little bit more. Yeah.
Okay.
How is he doing? Yeah, I mean, I don't think Allah is going to give the actual population, right? Exact population.
Yeah,
we
that's
sent
true.
them to 100,327, whatever.
It's like rounding, right?
Yeah, it's like rounding, sort of.
I've been also trying to understand like kufr. Like I've been just trying to understand it for the most of the time. I think it's like it has like stages. It's not just one thing.
Yeah, definitely.
So it's like if you disobey God and you know it's truth, it counts as kufr, right?
Yeah, I mean it's a kufr. So the key thing to know about kufr is that it's the key part of it, the actual key core meaning is ingratitude, right? But it's also like sort of like a multi. It's like it's I call these like almost like three-dimensional concepts, right? So when you try to sort of understand a higher concept, right, it's very difficult to give just a one-liner definition, right? I give the example of love. We all, we all understand that love exists. When we see it, we understand that it's there in front of us. When you see two people in love, or parents' love for their child, or child's love for their parents, you see it. But try to describe, have one definition for love, you'll fail, right? You'll fail.
Okay, I think I understand.
Yeah, and the reason for that is because you can't in word, our words are linear, our language is linear. It's one word followed by another. No matter how your grammar is structured, the way we speak is always just one word after the other, right?
Yeah.
You can't encapsulate everything, right? So
Yeah.
it becomes like trying to describe a house, right? That you can see. Well, you can only see what's in front of you, the front part of it, right? And then, so when one time you're talking about kufur, you're seeing one side of it, right? It's like a 3D object. You're seeing one side. Then if you go around the back, you're seeing another side of it. But it's the same thing. It's like two sides of the same coin, right? As we say, right? So in the same way, you can have sort of like these 3D concepts, so to speak, or high concepts, where it's very difficult to narrow them down in one definition, but everybody knows what they are. You know that that's a real thing. You know love is a real thing, right?
Yeah.
And so kufr is that sort of thing. Its core, I mean, you can say the core of love is sort of like caring, right? Or wanting to be with somebody or things like that. And those definitions are never going to capture it all. In the same way, kufr, its core really is a sense of ingratitude, right? But of course, ingratitude itself is a response to something, isn't it?
Yeah.
When you're ungrateful, it's a response to some blessing, right?
Yeah.
So in that
like
way, it's also
yeah.
yeah.
It's like a difference between doing kufr with like your family and then with God. It's like a big difference, right?
Yeah. So you can have that sort of thing as well. So you can this being in kufr to your parents, for example, right?
Yeah.
Being kufr to your parents is you being just very ungrateful to them and ingrate towards your parents, right? And not being in shukr to them, right? And when it comes to God, right? There's a lot of like when the verses constantly in the Quran saying He's the one who's given you your as-sam' wal absar wal afida. He's the one who's given you your hearing, your eyesight, and your sort of like heart, mind basically. Al-afida is a mind basically, right? And it says قَلِيلًا مَا تَشْكُرُونَ, how little you are grateful. It's not talking about you sitting there and saying, "Oh Allah, I'm grateful for my hearing. I'm grateful for my sight." No, that's not what Allah wants you to do. When it talks about that, Allah is talking here about actually being grateful for something like this, like faculties, means using them, right? So if somebody gifts you a book, and maybe all of us, but if I've had people who have given me books which they've really loved, right?
Yeah.
Being grateful for that means actually reading it, right? If I just put it on the shelf, they'll be disappointed. Like, oh, you didn't read it? Why? I mean,
it's not great. It's not gratefulness. Yeah.
Yeah. The book is meant to be read. So when somebody gives you a book, gratitude is reading it, right? It's not just thanking the person and put it on your shelf and think. No, they're not going to be happy with that. When people give you a book because that they love, they actually want you to read it. They want to talk to you about it, right?
Yeah.
They want to gush a little bit about it, right? Or they give you their favorite movie, right? On a DVD or something. They want you to watch it, right? A movie is meant to be watched. Book is meant to be read. Your eyes are meant to be used in the right way. Your ears are meant to be used in the right way. Allah wants you to see what He's done. Allah wants you to see His creation. Allah wants you to understand things, right? That's why He's like, come on, gush with me over what I've done, sort of, right? So that's shukr, right? Kufr is the opposite of that, right? It's sort of like
refusing to use like sight and stuff and
refusing to use it, denying it, abusing it. It's like it's like somebody who's giving you a book and you end up like, I've run out
Killing
of
someone
toilet
with a
paper.
book.
I've run out of toilet paper. I'll just take a few pages out of this and use it in the toilet, right? That
Yeah.
that sort of thing, right? You're using it in the wrong way. You're not being not giving it no regard, right? It's how you respond, right? So kufr is also response, right? So when people talk about kufr is about covering up what you know to be true, that's not exactly right. It's about covering up blessings, really, right?
Yeah, I noticed
Because
that as well.
because the highest, again, it's the worst kind of kufr. Again, if somebody does you a favor, and if you've done somebody a lot of good, a lot of favors, you've helped them get into study hard and pass their grades. You spent long nights with them, sort of revising, and giving them your notes from school or whatever, and then they get good grades, and then you also help them get a job. And then at that job, they talk about how they did all of this themselves. Nobody helped them, and if you try to say, "Hey, I was there," he's like, "No, I wasn't you." Or they'll ignore you. They forget you. They cover it up.
Ingratitude.
They cover it up. You will feel you will feel how ungrateful that person is, right? You did all of that for them, and they sort of not even. It's not even that they are acting badly to you. They deny it. No, it never happened.
Yeah.
You never helped, right? So that's the essence of kufr. That sort of idea. Right.
Yeah.
So that's what I would say for that. And if you reading the Quran, you will be able to see every instance that I've seen this idea of kufr, and kufr is action, right? It's not really about belief.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. There's a very and somebody pointed out a very one which I hadn't actually thought of, a verse which shows that. Hold on, let me try to bring it out. And was it this one? Hold on.
That's all right. I'm waiting.
Yeah, so there's a one of the verses in Surah Al-Baqarah, right? Right. Basically talks about the Israelites and how they used to expel some of their people when that wasn't allowed, right? ثم أنتم هؤلاء تقتلون أنفسكم وتخرجون فريقا منكم من ديارهم تظاهرون عليهم بالإثم والعدوان وإن يأتوكم أسارى تفادوهم وهو محرم عليكم إخراجهم, right? And then the verse says, so this is verse 85 of Surah Al-Baqarah. It says, أفتؤمنوا ببعض الكتاب وتكفرون ببعض? Do you have faith in part of the book and kufr in the other part? And then
it's like a modern day. What's going on today?
Yeah, a little bit like that. Yeah, but the next part is the key thing here. فما جزاء من يفعل ذلك. So what is the recompense of he who does that? So showing you that iman in part of the book and kufr in part of the book is a fi'l. It's an action.
Yeah.
Because the next one says, فما جزاء من يفعل ذلك. Whoever does that. What is the recompense of the one who does that? Does what? Does the iman in some of the book and kufr in some of the book. Has faith in some of the book and sort of does kufr in part of the book. So it was very nice because I've never actually noticed that in that verse, and somebody pointed it out to me that there is another example showing that kufr is actually actions. There are others as well, right? So من يعمل صالحا فلنفسه ومن كفر فلأنفسهم يمهدون, right?
Yeah.
Whoever does good is for himself, and whereas whoever does kufr, it's upon their own selves as well. So kufr is action.
What do you think about the second promise to Bani Israel?
The second promise.
Yeah.
I think it's already happened, right? That's what I remember thinking about it. That it's not like it's this is all still recounting history, right?
Yeah.
So some people are thinking that this is now, right? I don't think this is now. I think it's already happened, right? That you had the first time, you had the second time, and it's just recounting history.
I mean, the reason I think it
more
didn't
important. Say that again.
The reason I think it didn't happen already is because only the first promise is really mentioned. The second one is just not mentioned at all.
So what is it? Which verse is it again? Because you could be right. I mean, that's what I remember thinking about it.
I think it was Surah Isra, الآية الرابعة.
The fourth, الرابع. I don't
Yeah,
think so, because that comes later, doesn't it? So it comes.
Yeah, no, it's 5. It's 5. The first one is 5.
Towards the end.
Surah
Yeah,
Isra.
so that's the verse which says it will happen 2 times, right? فإذا جاء وعد أولاهما بعثنا عليكم عبادا. So there's that one. But then the other verse, it's more towards the end of the surah, isn't it? So the verse where it
Second
says.
one? Let me just see.
So the other one comes towards the towards the end of the surah. I think it is.
Okay, I see what you said now. I didn't see the second promise.
So which verse is it?
It's 7.
7.
أحسنتم لأنفسكم وإن أسأتم فلها فإذا جاء
فإذا جاء وعد الآخرة yes ليسوء وجوهكم وليدخلوا المسجد كما دخلوه أول مرة ويتبروا بعضها تدبيرا. Right? So
yeah.
That's the second one, which is like already happened. I think the more pertinent verse is the one which talks about ويستأذن ربك ليبعثن عليهم إلى يوم القيامة من يسومهم سوء العذاب. Right? So there's a verse which says, well, Allah declared that He will raise against them until the day of judgment those who will sort of like,
torture,
persecute them or torture them.
Yeah.
And the reason for that is because I think what it means is until Yawm al-Qiyamah, you will have some among them who think that it's okay to exploit the goyim, right? The others. Right?
Yeah.
That's what's always happened, right? So that's why they've been turned out of how many countries? What's the meme? 109 countries.
Yep.
Something like that, yeah. And why is that? It's always because from what is it, coin flipping, all those things, yeah. Yeah, but I mean, it's God's promise, but I mean, he's not controlling people in that way where he's making people do that, right? So when something is sort of inevitable because of sort of almost natural law, right?
Yeah.
Allah ascribes it to Himself in the Qur'an.
Yeah.
Right?
That's why God says He holds up the birds.
Yeah, exactly. So when things like that, so it's the same thing. So because it's Allah has put that nature in people, right? Fitra in people, that if if a group of people find that another group of people are exploiting them, eventually they reach a point where they will like sort of like fight back against them, right? So then they say no, like get out of here. We're going to expel you. We're going to do this, or we're going to like persecute you. Why? Because so it's a section of them who have this mentality towards the rest of humanity. These are the people that think. I mean, these are the ones who are the qiradatu al khanazir, right? I did one stream which talked about that, right? The bee monkeys and apes, right? Kunu qiradatan khasqin, right? I think that it's referring to those people who kept on being basically like
modern day
apes, like apes they're imitating, because the whole idea of the qird in sort of Arabic culture is it imitates, right? Imitates without any understanding, and just keeps on going on and on and on, right?
That makes way more sense than just the monkey translation.
Yeah. I mean, that's a metaphor in it, right? Be apes. If you're gonna act, if you're gonna be like that, okay, be like that. Be apes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's not like God transformed. I don't know why people think that.
No. Because look, it's definitely not God transformed, because the next verse shows that they're human. He continues talking to them as that they're human. So it's not that God transformed them into monkeys and apes or whatever. Which stream was that, by the way? I wonder.
Let me check.
It was had like a thumbnail of a monkey on it. monkey smoking. I think somebody was put like a woman smoking and a monkey smoking.
Let me see, monkey. Oh, there you go. B, then monkeys despise 72.
Number 72. Yeah, there you go. Yeah. B, then monkeys despise. Right. So that's why I talked about that verse. Because the next, like I said, it's definitely not that they are being transformed.
Yeah.
Okay.
Also, what do you think about like predestination?
Yeah, I don't believe in it at all. So that the idea that and people need to separate it from God's foreknowledge, right? So God knows
Yeah.
what's going to happen in the future, but knowing what's going to happen in the future is not doesn't cause it. God knows the future of what you are going to choose, right?
I think there was like a verse that had me thinking it's real, because it's when God says that any disaster that happens is in the book before it happens, before God brings into existence.
من قبل أن نبرأها. Yes, that one.
Yeah.
Yeah. في كتاب من قبل أن نبرأها. Right. So that's talking about disasters and stuff like that. I mean, we can predict. It's again, I think it's basically about natural law, right? So like earthquakes, right, things like that. Like if you have all of the data about the Earth right now, you can predict when the next earthquake will be, right? So that's what I think that's about, right? من قبل أن نبرأها. That's, let me try and pull
Like, what
it out.
what does Nabraha actually like specifically mean? Is it bring into, or?
Yeah, bring in. It's from Bariya, from the Bar. ظهر الفساد في البر والبحر, right? So it's talking about things. Yeah, things being brought up. So like basically things being made to happen on Earth.
Yeah.
So things being made sort of like to happen on Earth. What is من قبل أن so that's what I said. ما أصاب من مصيبة في الأرض ولا في أنفسكم إلا في كتاب من قبل أن نبرأها. So for example, why doesn't it mention the sky? ما أصاب من مصيبة في الأرض ولا في أنفسكم إلا في كتاب من قبل أن نبرأها.
أنفسكم, I think, means like diseases, right? Like if you
exactly. We're talking about basically physical things. So we all have so some people have a ticking time bomb of certain diseases that are going to come their way just because of genetics, just because of things like this, right? I have a friend who knew he was going to be blind. He's a lawyer. He ended up, he's a trained lawyer, and he does the whole justice is blind thing. So he works it up a bit, but he knew because it was hereditary. His father had gone blind at a certain age, right? His grandfather, and so he knew that by the age of 25 or whatever, he's going to be blind.
Yeah.
So it's something which he knew was going to happen, right? And he talks about being in uni one day trying to type, right, and then his vision blurring, and then he holding his hand, his fingers to his eyes, and then them coming away bloody, right? So that's when he, yeah.
So like, it's like the predestination. You don't believe really in it, right?
No, not at all.
Also, I think there was another verse. Let me try to remember it. Yeah, I think it said all is from God.
Yeah. So there's a verse which talks about two verses which are almost like back to back. I forget the end sort of tell.
Yeah, I think that's why I think it explains it because it's back to back. Let me see. Let me look for it. 4, 7, 8. Let me see. There we go. عندما تكونوا يدرككم الموت ولو كنتم في بروج
مشيدة. No, that one. Okay. That's different. I thought you thinking about different one.
Yeah. يقول هذا من عندك قل كل من عند الله.
Yeah, كل من عند الله. Right. So you have two different things there. Let me put it as well.
The first one talks about the cause of everything. The second one talks about like the morals, like you know, if something is good, then it's from God, and if it's bad, and it's from yourself.
Yeah. So you have, what is it? The first. Yeah. So it's basically 78 and 79, right?
Yeah.
Exactly what you're talking about, right?
Yeah.
So if you notice, there's a very key difference between the verses. So in one of them it says, وإن تصبهم حسنة يقولون هذه من عند الله. عند. So عند is used there. وإن تصبهم سيئة يقولون هذه من عندك. So we're using عند for both of these. When a good thing befalls them, they say this is from عند Allah. And when a bad thing befalls them, they say this is from عند you. Right?
Yeah. Isn't عند
Right?
from
And then it
you
says,
from?
and then I just want to make just see the different point, right? And then the verse says, "You, Muhammad, tell them, قل كل من عند الله." So both the musiba and the good thing, they're both from عند الله. But then the next verse says, "ما أصابك من حسنة فمن الله." فمن Allah, not فمن عند الله, right? وما أصابك من سيئة فمن نفسك. So people look at these two verses at first and they think they're contradicting each other. Right? One of them is saying that everything is, the good and the bad are from Allah, and the other verse is saying no, the good is from Allah and the bad is from you, right?
Yeah.
But the key difference between them, which I haven't been able to resolve exactly what that means, but there's a degree of separation, right?
Yeah.
When you say min indillah, just having that word in there, in between Allah and between min.
Yeah.
So from, you have min and then ind and then Allah. So you have this degree of separation, right? So it's almost like saying that the good and the bad, they come from near the presence of Allah. So so like less from some place less than Allah, right? Not from Allah, but sort of like from close to Allah, right? The good and the bad come from some place close to Allah. So like that degree, that level of reality or something like that, right? But the other level where it's more direct,
it's cause of morals, like all is from God is the cause of everything, and
it could be like that. I mean, I never got that far in thinking about it, to be honest. But the other one, when it says that the whatever good befalls you, it's from Allah, not from ind Allah, just from Allah directly. And whatever bad befalls you, it's from your own self, from in nafsik, right?
Yeah,
it's your own nafs directly. So it's just that nuance between those verses, and I think that's where the real resolution between them lies. It's understanding that, right?
Yeah. Well, also, what do you think of the shape of Earth?
The flat Earth thing, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I looked at that. I remember, like, me and my friends. Yeah, it was a fantastic thing to to look into back in days before YouTube sort of like just scrubbed it, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I remember, like, what was it? It was like 10 years ago or something. Like, there was like flat Earth channels and stuff. You could listen to it. There are still some in Arabic, right?
Yeah.
There was this great one called Khatla. Have you seen that?
Nope.
Khatla. Check that out. It's really funny. It's a Saudi kid, Saudi guy. And he's very funny. It's really humorous the way he does it. But he's got a whole series and channel called Khatla. Khatla in Old Arabic means, a deception, right? Deception. So he has a whole thing about the flat Earth stuff. So I mean, there are some very interesting points that are made for that. But of course, now generally, I think it's just a globe Earth. I think some of the arguments for the globe Earth are just false. They're just wrong. Basically, and that's why. But people who sort of like want to argue against flat earthers, they want to hold on to these wrong things. Especially like the whole thing that the boat disappears over the curve of the thing. Yeah, that one. It doesn't work, right? You just pull out a telescope and suddenly you can see it again. So it is just perspective where it's going down. So it's things like that, right? Other things are like the idea of what's the other one that the flat Earth views, which is wrong. Like the shade, like the moon, that the light of the moon is cold, right? They have this idea that they're trying to figure out what the moon is, right?
Yeah.
And I think it's pretty obvious that the moon is a physical. You can see craters on
Physical
it.
thing, and God literally talks about the moon as well. So
Yeah. So it's a very fascinating thing to look into when you it
I
was
think
fun times.
I think the issue with like the people who believe in globe Earth is that it becomes like a religious belief. It's like they have to defend it no matter what. They lose their minds over it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't, for example, but one thing I don't believe in is the moon landings, right? I don't think anybody.
Yeah, I don't
believes
believe that. Yeah, I don't believe anybody landed either.
Yeah,
The footage itself just looks CGI. It's just not.
It's
normal.
ridiculous. Yeah, it's ridiculous.
They had like they had 512 kilobyte of RAM. It's like it doesn't make sense. And it's also about evolution, like how it has been turned into a cult. Like it's just a cult now.
Yeah, I mean, look, when it comes to these sort of science things like evolution and stuff, you have to remember that they're working with a materialistic framework, right?
Yeah.
And if you have a materialistic framework, you've already automatically discounted God. So the only logical explanation is going to be things like evolution and stuff.
Yeah. The thing is, they can't ever answer the question of who started it if they believe in evolution. Like it's just a gap.
I mean, a good person is to look into James Tour, right? Tour, who deals with abiogenesis. So chemistry before life happened, right? So how do because to have evolution, you actually have to have life first, the first cell. But how do you get to the first cell even, right?
Yeah.
How do you get it from inorganic chemistry? How do you get to organic chemistry?
And how do you get it from nothing? Because like
it's not just that; it's so difficult. It's so difficult because it's so difficult to make just to make things work. I mean, some people think like the evolutionists will talk about time. That time will fix the problem. Time actually works against you. Like I'm a chemist. Right now. Time works against you a lot of the time because the reagent that you make, sometimes they only survive for a few seconds, right? And you have to use them for the next step of the process, right? So it's not going to hang around for millions of years while another reagent is formed.
I mean, generally speaking, I don't believe in evolution. Like it's silly, really. When you kind of look at it, like the fact there's a huge gap between like civilization, like 10,000 years ago, everything basically started. Nothing really before that. That's just it's just too sudden.
Yeah, it is. It's indeed.
And like it's from the Qur'an as well, like the first human and all that.
Yeah. Okay, bro. I've got a few other people.
All right.
Backstage,
I'll leave and I'll listen.
All right, brilliant.
Also, I have one last thing to ask. When are you gonna make a Discord, or like at least invite people in?
I'd like to make one, but I mean, it's the one issue is it's blocked over here. That's one thing.
Wait, where are you right now?
I'm in like the Middle East, so where I am right now, it's just they blocked Discord.
No.
But the other thing is, worried there will be sort of like even now, I'm not keeping up with like Reddit, like and I've got Reddit, I've got the YouTube, and I've got Twitter, and adding Discord will be like a whole other thing to keep up with, right? And it's difficult, I've got work here, pretty strenuous work, and my family, kids. I homeschool my kids. One of them is dyslexic. One of them is dyslexic, so she needs a bit more work. So it's just time. No time. Maybe later in the future. I retire and I'll make a Discord.
All right, bro.
All right, okay.
Jazakallah khair, bro.
Jazakallah khair. You too. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.
All right, okay. So that was our bro there. I've still got two more people, Geralt and Alafin. All right, let's bring you on, Alafin. Assalamu alaikum.
Hello?
Hey, hello, how you doing?
Oh, 1 second, I can't hear you. Let me see if it's my thing's messed up. Hello?
Yeah, assalamu alaikum. You can hear me?
Hold on, I'm gonna leave and join back 1 second.
All right, cool. Let him leave and join back in. Hey, you've got Ayman. Assalamu alaikum. Good to see you. Yeah, great. Alhamdulillah. Excellent. There we go. Let's bring you back on. Hello?
Yes, sir. I can hear you now. How are you?
Yeah, right. Brilliant. How are you doing?
I'm good. Assalamu alaikum. How are you?
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmah.
This is the same guy from 3 or 4 weeks ago who was talking about the Torah stuff, and I'm the same guy from Twitter who was asking me about the Asnam stuff. And I wanted to continue that conversation because I'm still a little bit like confused. Like, so a sanam within the Quran, because I know like sanam does just mean like a statue and just a literal statue, but within the Quran, is it that it's another word that the Quran is trying to transform that can fit to humans?
Yeah, I think so. I do think so. I think sanam, it's almost pretty much the same as like idol in English, right? So idol in English, we can use that for people, and we can also use that for like an actual physical idol, right? So it comes up the most in I think in the story of Ibrahim, right? It's where it's used the most, asnam, right? Lakidanna asnamakum, I'll make a plot against your asnam, right?
Yeah, that's actually the verse I was having a disagreement with someone about, because
Yeah.
they were saying, I was trying to say, since the word for plot, that word is like a literal word, meaning like to outsmart someone or something that has like a brain, like to outwit something.
Yeah.
That is something that's not used, not even in the Quran. It's not used against inanimate objects aside from that verse, which would be circular. And the person tried to say, if you read the Asnam as a person, then you have to read the next verse about when he turned them into fragments. You have to read that as Ibrahim like dismembering humans, and that didn't make sense to me. But
Juzad, let me bring out the verse. Juzad, جعلهم جثثا إلا كبيرا لهم, right? That's
yes,
the one, I think.
I think so.
Yeah. So I mean, I think I did. There was a stream. I mentioned it to you as well. There was a stream where I went through this idea, but maybe I told you the wrong one. I'm not sure, because I was saying, okay, was it that one or was it a different one where we spoke about it? But basically, the idea about this is, I do think that you can read it in the, like, sort of like the surface level, so the kid level. The story of Ibrahim definitely can be that it's all about just the physical statues, right? That's what he's going at, right? But I think that's like the lower level of it, right? That what he's talking about really is going to end up being the asnam, right? So it's because it's all a dialogue, right? From the beginning, he's all just talking with them, right? It says, وَلَقَدْ آتَيْنَا إِبْرَاهِيمَ رُشْدَهُ مِنْ قَبْلِ وَكُنَّا بِهِ عَالِمِينَ, right? That we gave Ibrahim his rushd, right? When he said to his, so first of all, he starts calling them what? إذ قال لأبيه وقومه ما هذه التماثيل التي أنتم لها عاكفون. So he uses the word tamathil. Now that really does mean just statue, because it comes from the word tamthil, right? To make something look like something else, right? So tamathil are really just statues, right? ما هذه التماثيل التي أنتم لها عاكفون, that you are to it devoted or making rituals, basically, right? So that's like right at the start of the thing, right? The start of the thing, verse 52. Okay, so he's saying it. So that's what the start of it. He's asking them, what are these tamathil that you are, making a calf towards, right? And I've mentioned this before, right? That when it comes to the inanimate objects, like the golden calf, never once in the Quran does Allah say they were in ibadah to the golden calf. They were not in ibadah. It's always used this word, this very word in this verse, a calf, right? Akifun. The word is also used for with respect to the Kaaba, right? Al-Akifin wal-Ruk'i as-Sujud. Of course, now we think of i'tikaf as in, doing i'tikaf in the mosque, like seclusion in the mosque, right? But the verse, طهر بيتي للطائفين والعاكفين وركع السجود. purify my home for the ones who make tawaf, the ones who make ikaf, right? And the ones who prostrate. And so we're obviously talking about physical rituals here, right? Physical rituals. So that's what it comes down to. So he's saying, what are these statues that you are doing these rituals towards, right? They said, قالوا وجدنا آباؤنا لها عابدين. They said, no, basically it's almost like saying, what do you mean? We're not just doing ikaf, we're doing ibadah to them, right? Ibadah. So they said, we saw our parents doing ibadah to them. That's what they think. They think they're in ibadah to these, right? So he says, قال لقد كنتم أنتم وآباؤكم في ضلال مبين. You and your forefathers are in error, right? Are in error, in ضلال, right? But you had that switch, and I think that switch is key to the way that I'm understanding it anyway. If you want to talk about higher level of just not that these are not just statues, there's that key switch where he is saying that you are doing ikaf to it, and they're saying we are in ibadah to it. They're saying you guys don't know what you're doing, basically. لقد كنتم أنتم وآباؤكم في ضلال مبين. You're in dalal. You're lost. You're astray. You don't know what you're doing. You think you're in ibadah. Your forefathers thought they were in ibadah, but you're not in ibadah. You're just doing these rituals to these inanimate objects, right? So that's how I see it there, right? قالوا أجئتنا بالحق ما أنت من اللاعبين. They said, have you come to us with the truth, or are you of those who are just basically like playing around? Are you playing around? Where's mine? There we go. Are you just playing around? قال بل ربكم. He said, rather your actual Rabb, right? Your actual Rabb is رب السماوات والأرض الذي فطرهن وأنا على ذلك من الشاهدين. Your actual Rabb is Allah, the Lord of the heavens and the earth. They say, وتالله لأكيدن أصنامكم بعد أن تولوا مدبرين. By Allah, I will make a plot against your asnam. Now he uses the word asnam, right? Now use the word asnam. After what? After they've mentioned that we found our parents in that. We have found our forefathers doing this, right? So now he talks about them, and he says, you and your forefathers are in error. And now I'm going to make a plot to show you against who? Against your forefathers, right? I'm going to do this against your forefathers, right? I'm going to plot against them. The asnam, which are in your mind almost, right, as well, right? So the asnam with these idols which are in your mind, I'm going to make a plot. I'm going to, when you turn around, I'm going to do something, right? فَجَعَلَهُمْ جُذَاذًا إِلَّا كَبِيرًا لَهُمْ, right? And he made them, right, into fragments, except one of the biggest, right? إِلَّا كَبِيرًا لَهُمْ, except a big one for them. Who are them here? Who are them when it says except a big one for them, right? If I read the translation, it says, so he made them into fragments except a large one among them. It says among them, but it doesn't say minhum in Arabic. فَجَعَلْنَاهُمْ جُذَاذًا إِلَّا كَبِيرًا مِنْهُمْ, except a big one from them. No, a big one for them, right? For them. So this was a sanam for them, right? It's sort of in their mind, right? لَعَلَّهُمْ إِلَيْهِ يَرْجِعُونَ, so that maybe they would turn back to him, right? لَعَلَّهُمْ إِلَيْهِ يَرْجِعُونَ. And of course, you can say that they can turn back to Allah, or they can turn back and question him, like that the idol he smashed.
What do you mean about what's the significance of the large one for them?
Yeah, so I think the wording here can signify that it's not talking about that he made them into smashed fragments. So he made them, as in them being the idols, the statues. He made them into smashed, except a big one from among them. It doesn't say from among them. It says a big one of theirs, of the peoples, basically, right? Of the peoples, right? So it's just a nuance, to be honest. It's a nuance where we're talking about something which is theirs rather than just one of the idols. There's just a big one from one of the idols, not a big one of their idols, right? Of their idols, right? كبيرا لهم لعلهم إليه يرجعون. right? قالوا سمعنا, they said we heard a man talking about them, a young man, it's Ibrahim. They said bring him among the people so that they can يشهدون. قالوا أنت فعلت هذا بآلهتنا يا إبراهيم. They said, did you do that with our آلهة, O Ibrahim? They said no. He said no. بل فعله كبيرهم. Rather the big one of them did it. فاسألوهم. So ask them in كانوا ينطقون. So ask them if they can speak, right? So he wants them to see that these are things which don't speak. Why does he say that? Right? So this whole thing is, I mean, he could have played this different ways, right? Well, he's pulling them into asking them, trying to like question it, right? Question the idols, right? To see if the idols speak to them or not. But he could have played it in a different way. He could have said, the big one did it, right? The big one did it, so punish him or something, right? Punish him, like throw him into the fire, right? He's the guilty one, right? Or something like that, right? And then what did they do? فَرَجُعُوا إِلَيْهِمْ فَرَجُعُوا إِلَى أَنفُسِهِمْ. They came back to themselves and they said, قالوا إنكم أنتم الظالمون. You are the ones who are unjust. ثم نكسوا على رؤوسهم لقد علمت ما هؤلاء ينطقون. Again, go back to speaking, right? You know that these things don't speak, right? You know that they don't speak, right? So there seems to be a push. The story here is that he's trying to make them recognize that these things, these idols, are not the ones speaking. They're not the ones. Therefore, they are not the ones to whom they are in ibadah to. Do you take my meaning? Right? If they don't speak, if these things can't speak, how are they in ibadah to them?
I agree with that.
Yeah, they are in ikaf, like as Ibrahim said at the beginning. They are doing rituals to them, but they are not in ibadah to them. They are not in ibadah to them. So that's a way to read it, and sort of, I think, at a high level. Now, I admit that you can read it as just sort of like that sort of like lower level, sort of like more childish thing, I think, right? Not childish, but this is how this is how I teach it to my younger children, right? I'll tell them, that this is, that it was, is trying to make them, see that they shouldn't worship idols, right? But I don't see it that way. I just say, it's about thing. It's about, them not doing rituals to them and stuff like that, right? So then it says, the next verse says, قال أفتعبدون من دون الله ما لا ينفعكم شيئا ولا يضركم. So now it goes back to ibadah. It says, are you really in ibadah? So I take this question. It doesn't have to be a rhetorical question. I could be actually asking them, are you really in ibadah to these things which do not help you and do not benefit you, which don't speak as well, right? Are you really in ibadah to them, right? And it says, أُفٍ لَكُمْ وَلِمَ تَعْبُدُونَ. And it says, woe, fee or uf upon you, and to what you are really in ibadah to. وَلِمَ تَعْبُدُونَ مِن دُونِ اللَّهِ. Right? So it's an interesting thing. You've got these two verses, one after the other. One asking them, are you in ibadah to these things, to that which helps you and doesn't, doesn't harm you? Then the next thing says, woe to you and to what you are in ibadah to, what you read. So if you take that first question as not rhetorical, but as a question which has an answer, right? And the answer isn't ibadah to the idols as they claimed, right? Because they are not speaking, because that, then it becomes okay. The woe to it's oof to those things which are really in ibadah to, which are the figures behind the idols. The figures behind the idols are the things which are really the problem. They always will be, right? Idols in themselves just don't do anything. Right?
Yeah, that's what I was trying to tell the person. I was trying to tell him that this whole story in both chapter 21 and chapter 26 and chapter 37, I believe, is all Ibrahim trying to convince them, you think that you're in ibadah to these idols, but really you're in ibadah to your leaders. Like when they said, like, it didn't specify who said it, but it said, they said, I forgot the exact words, but it was like avenger gods,
Yeah,
they
exactly.
obviously their leaders.
Give Ansuru Ali in the same thing, right? It says, I think in the same surah, right? Make a fire and and help your gods, right? Well, they've already been smashed. How are you going to help them, right? How are you helping them in that sort of way? No, but they are helping the idea of the idols themselves, which they've been given from their forefathers, right? And the ones who are calling them to do that, and the people who are responding to the call to do that, right? They're the ones who they are really in ibadah. The ones who said, burn him and help your idols. Those people are the ones who are really speaking, or really commanding, right? Doing what they say. That's ibadah to them. Yeah, so قالوا حرقوه وانصروا آلهتكم إن كنتم فاعلين. Right? They said, burn him and support your gods if you are to act. Well, the ones speaking there, these are the real idols, right? The ones speaking there, the ones saying that.
Right? So, like the way I've been thinking about it is like the way the Quran like positions these words. The tamathil is like the literal idol, but the asnam, the sanam, that's the way I'm thinking of it is like well, it's subjective obviously with these verses, but like who the person thinks the character of the idol is. Like obviously the village, Ibrahim's village, they think the asnam are literally the idols, literally the gods behind, the quote unquote gods behind these idols. But Ibrahim, after his enlightenment, he knows they're actually people behind the idols. And that's the only thing that stumped me with this thing, because obviously I'm not an Arabic speaker, I'm not fluent in like the grammar of Arabic, was when he brought up the fact that the Fajr chapter 21 verse 58, when he says made them into pieces, that is conjugated in a way that refers to the asnam. So if Ibrahim thinks that the asnam are people, that means that he's dismembering people. And I don't know.
No, it isn't that. I mean, it does. It talks about them there. It is talking about the what they consider to be asnam, of course, right? So he spoke to them in that kind of way, right? So when he says, I'm going to make a plot against your asnam, right? That doesn't mean he's going to make that doesn't mean the next pronoun is speaking about the people, right? It just means the story's moved on now, right? And he made the tamathil into pieces, right? So like if I were to say, I don't know, I'm going to play a bunch of people have a bunch of cars. I'm going to play a prank. I'm going to play a prank on you after you leave, and then I say, so I went to them, the cars, right, and I slashed them or whatever it is, right? I don't know, right? So it is going back to the tamathil, right? But the kaid is not on the tamathil, right? The kaid, the trick, right? It isn't on them, right? So when he says, I'm going to make a kaid on your asnam, how am I going to do that? I'm going to do that by smashing the tamathil.
Both tamathil and asnam, they're both masculine plural, right?
In this one, yeah, I think they are, yes.
Okay.
Tamathil, no, that's in feminine. In feminine.
So what?
But I mean, the correspondence that doesn't really matter, because you can have some things which are the word itself is is feminine, but it's grammarly in grammar it is masculine, but it's referring to some things which are feminine. Right, in Arabic you can have it that way, so it's not
that's not an error.
What do you mean?
Like referring to something with a masculine pronoun, but the antecedent is feminine. That's not an error. Like that's
no. So I'm talking about, so you can have a word where the word itself is feminine, right? The actual the Arabic term, it's feminine, but the reality of what it's talking about is things which is masculine, right? So you can have that in Arabic, right? It doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be a complete correspondence. It usually is, of course. Usually, if they've got a word which is, if there's something which is feminine in real life, in the real world, with the word which corresponds to it is going to be feminine as well. But that's not necessarily always the case, right? And in this case, of course, these are inanimates, right? So they're not really feminine or masculine, right? So they're not really, but it's just a grammar-wise thing. Right? It's like the sun. The sun is meant to be feminine in Arabic. The moon is meant to be masculine, right?
Yeah. So this is still about the story of Ibrahim. We're also trying to prove that Ibrahim is referring to people and not literal idols when he talks about Asnam.
I think Sorry, go ahead. I cut you off.
Oh, no problem. So I also referred to chapter 19 when Ibrahim says, "Protect my sons from Asnam. They mislead people." And I said that obviously is saying that these Asnam are active agents in misleading people. But the person who I was arguing with, he was saying, "Oh no, that's just a metonym where you know how people say money killed him or video games, this and that, how it's not really an active agent, but it contributed to it." He was saying that the Quran was doing that, but I can't find any other examples of the Quran using that sort of rhetorical tool to say anything like that.
Yeah, no, I mean, but it works. It works. So you could say that. I mean, again, so I don't want it to be taken that I'm denying that these verses, the story of Ibrahim, can be used as if to talk about inanimate, idols. I just think that that's like the lowest level of understanding for it, right? I really think that there's a higher level with it here. Maybe in actually, at least the Quran is using it in that kind of way, right? Maybe in actual fact, Ibrahim was just, he himself wasn't looking at it as much as he was sort of having both ideas. He wasn't just trying to. He was actually, on a vengeance thing against the actual just inanimate objects, right? I don't think so. I think that it clearly shows a much more higher sophistication. Because don't forget, these we are just getting a few verses, right? Whereas Ibrahim in real life, this probably was a much longer dialogue, right? It was a much longer like talk back and forth. It wasn't just, these were not the only words ever said between them, right? All right, it was a longer process of confrontation and stuff like that, and the rest. But yes, that one is an excellent example, right? Which numni baniya na'bud al-asnam, right? Innahunna adlalna kathiran, right? They have misled a great many, right? So whoever follows me, they are with me, right? And whoever disobeys me, then you are thing. So so when he says that, whoever follows me, right, is from me. Whoever disobeys me, okay, so disobeys me means what? It means they're obeying somebody else, right? They're obeying somebody else, right? وَمَنْ عَصَانِي, whoever disobeys me, then you can deal with them essentially, right? So I hold to that. I mean, the most pertinent examples of understanding the shirk and all of these are actually people. Even in these, at least in Surah As-Safat, right? So you have that story of Ibrahim and As-Safat as well, right? And then you have in the same surah talking about
The day of judgment.
Exactly, on the day of judgment.
I was just about to bring that up.
Exactly. So take them and their people and what they used to worship and take them to the fire, right? So obviously we're not talking about Allah doesn't resurrect the idols that Ibrahim smashes, right?
Yeah, the guy was trying to tell me that Allah was gonna put like whatever jinn inspired people to do this inside the idols and feed the idols into hell. I was like, where did you get this from? That's not anywhere in the Quran. Allah does not just say this.
Why the jinn though?
Exactly.
Why is it the jinn who inspired it? Why can't it be, in the end, even if the jinn inspired somebody to do it, that person ends up having speaking and telling other people to do it, right? So in the end, it comes to somebody somebody telling people to worship idols.
Because this whole thing was a conversation about me talking to him about how you can't be in ibadah to like an inanimate object, a dead person, any of that. And I brought up the two parallel situations from chapter 21 and chapter Surah Safat, when the objects of ibadah min dunillah are being thrown into hell. And I was like, if you really take that to mean anything that is quote unquote worshipped, then wouldn't this mean that Jesus would go to hell? Like, and he tried to say that verse 21, chapter 21, verse 101, that is the exception to the rule. Because I had brought up, if all the things that are being quote unquote worshipped, not served, but worshipped, go to hell, then that would mean Jesus would go to hell. That would mean all the cats in ancient Egypt that were worshipped, they would go to hell. God would throw cats into hell. Let's say there's a random society of people who venerated a baby who died of chicken pox. That baby would go to hell too. So I was trying to question him on that, and he just said, oh, chapter 21, verse 101, that provides the easy exception to that. And I was like,
well, usually what they say, what I've heard as a rebuttal is that they will say that it only applies to those who wanted to be worshipped, right? So Jesus didn't want to be worshipped, of Allah. So he said, okay, well then no idol ever wanted or not wanted. They don't have any feelings like they never called to be no. So what is it then? You can't use that defense for it. But I wouldn't push the point too much with whoever it is that you're discussing with, right? If they see these verses as about inanimate objects, right? Okay, fine. But the more important thing is they recognize where the real danger of shirk is and where it lies, right? Even when it comes to the worship of inanimate objects, like this is what he says. You ask them, okay, fine, but nobody starts off saying, I want to worship an inanimate object, right? It gets taught to them. Even in this verse, it's saying that, it's our forefathers who we found doing that. So it's something which is picked up from others. It's learned from others, right? So in the end, it just comes back to people, doesn't it? Right? When he said, we found our forefathers doing that. So, okay, the reason why you're doing it is because of your forefathers. Not because of the tamathil, right? They never said to asked for it, right? So ultimately, what is the reason of doing this? Right? It will always come down back to people. No idol ever started the worship of itself.
Yeah, and there was another verse. I forgot if it was in chapter 21 or 26. Ibrahim, he said, I forgot what preceded, but he said it was talking about those that the people were in ibadah to, and he said these are the enemies of me. And I was trying to say, Ibrahim wouldn't say something so arbitrary, because the person said Ibrahim was trying to prove that their gods are false. And I was trying to tell him, so you're saying on one hand, Ibrahim was trying to prove that their gods are false, but on the other hand, he was affirming them to be true enough for them to be his enemies. That just seems arbitrary.
Yeah, it does. And don't forget also, just look at the verses which actually do mention idols. So there are verses which mention actual idols, right? Right? Look how those verses talk about them, right? It's just mocking them. It's like, you're for you the male and you the female, and saying these are just names, right? Just names that you named, you and your forefathers. God has sent down no sultan of it, right? It doesn't make a big deal out of it, right? And the Quran barely ever mentions any of the idols, right? And that doesn't mention some of the idols of Mecca, no Hubal, right? No, what were these other ones that they had? The Quran mentioned Lat, Manat, and Al-Uzza, but like Hubal and but I don't know the names of those idols that they had. But all these Mecca apparently had so many idols that the Quran almost never mentions it. If you read the beginning of the Quran, the early surahs are revealed, they don't even mention shirk. There's nothing mentioned about idols, nothing mentioned about shirk, right? So it's all about the shirk comes later. The very root of shirk in the Quran comes in the much later surahs. The very earlier surahs, they have nothing about shirk at all.
Yeah,
Right?
what was the first surah to talk about shirk?
I'm not sure which one is the first one, but because of course we don't have exactly the surah or order, but we know generally which surahs are first, right?
Because I know chapter 18 is the one that defines it, but like how would they have understood it before that?
Yeah, I mean, I still think it will be understood as I mean, you can see it all over. That it's going to be about ibadah. I mean, it's not just that's the one I always go to because it's the easiest one to see straight away, right?
Mhm.
But all over the Quran, you see whenever shirk is mentioned, it's with ibadah, right?
Mhm.
وَعْبُدُوا اللَّهِ وَلَا تُشْرِكُوا بِهِ شَيْئًا. Be in ibadah to Allah and don't do shirk with Him at all. So you already see that it's about ibadah, right? Even in those early surahs. Right? But the point is that the earlier surahs, they don't mention shirk at all, right? And if that was the big issue, because that's the idea in Sunni Islam and tradition, the big issue, why was the Prophet sent? To take people away from shirk. Okay, well, the first surahs, the first few years of the Prophet received, there's no talk about shirk. The talk about shirk comes later as people start to be in ibadah to the Prophet's opponents,
Mhm.
right? As the Prophet gets opponents, right, and these people start, the idols for other people. Now you see shirk, and now the Quran starts talking about it. There's no shirk in the beginning as much, right? Because it's not as clear yet if people are going to be in ibadah to Allah, or if they're going to be in ibadah to the the elders, right? But then that becomes more clear, and then the Quran starts talking heavily about shirk and the mushrikeen, right? And if you read Surah Al-An'am, it's all about them, right? And making things haram, 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 right? The ball comes over there. The Surah Al-An'am talks a lot about shirk, and it's all about how these people have made this haram, they've made that haram, without any authority, they've done this, they've done this. Um, so you have that sort of strain. But the early surahs, you just talk about doing good deeds and the moral message as much. It's there. It talks about the fujjar and the abrar. It talks about the mujrimeen, right? Um, so it doesn't bring up the issue of shirk. So, but when you look at the story of Ibrahim, straight away they want to say that he's straight away talking about shirk, about the idols. No, so there's a lot more. We're just being given um, something to ponder on from the story. It's just a few verses, right, which tell us some of the story, right?
Mhm.
We have to think about it in terms of like a longer view, just like the Prophet spoke for a long time, um, preached for a long time. These prophets did that for a long time as well. It wasn't just like all in a day or something, right? As we read these verses in the Quran, we read them there's just like 5 verses or something. They encapsulate most of the story, the beginning of it. No, but that in reality probably spanned quite a long time.
Mhm.
Mm.
And my last question was just about like it's less related. It's sort of related to the Quran, but it's more history related. I wanted to know like what you think about like how historians found out that before the Quran it was like 200 years in Arabia of
Mm.
monotheism, not polytheism as people
Yeah.
always believe.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that was an amazing find, right? But I mean, it confirms the Quran, right? It confirms the Quran because the Quran talks about um, the mushrikeen and the kuffar as believers in Allah, right? They all believed in Allah, and not only believed in Allah, they believed He was the one who created everything, that He brought life and death, that in His hands is the malakut. They all assent to all of it. So when the Quran says, if you ask them in whose hand is everything, basically the malakut is samawat al the kingdom of the heavens and the earth, or the dominion, but they say Allah, right? So of course, people of that kind of mentality, making inscriptions in the desert when they're traveling, who are they going to invoke? They're going to be invoking Allah. They're going to be asking Allah, right? So we don't see all of the, and for people who aren't aware about this, basically, people have been able to start doing surveys in Arabia now, where they survey the inscriptions that are done. As people travel around, before they would do a lot of rock inscriptions, right, when they stop somewhere, and you have a lot of inscriptions to various idols, right? So Lat is very prominent, right, all over Arabia, other ones as well. But then about 200 years before the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, before Islam, all of the inscriptions to all of the deities die out, and you only have inscriptions to Allah only, right? So that shows that there was a shift into monotheism well before Islam, right? Well before Islam, right? So that's another piece that shows you that when the Quran is talking about shirk and mushrikeen, it's not talking so much about the idols, which is why it doesn't mention it. It doesn't mention the many idols. It mentions just Lat and Uzza and Manat, and basically that's it, right? And the rest of the time it's not talking about that. It's talking about following your forefathers, or obedience to elders, being like one of the herd, being like cattle, not thinking. It's talking about these sort of things. So that's what the shirk is about.
How did that shift in like the mainstream like canon of history change to Arabia was just polytheists everywhere? How did that even happen?
How did that happen? I'm not sure. I think it just happened with the rest of the. I think because when you look at it, even when you study the seerah, right, and the biography of the Prophet, you don't see the mushrikeen being that enamored with their idols at all. Like it's not like they're like, oh no, save our idols and protect them from Muhammad. You don't see that, right? There's none of this like in the story of Ibrahim, for example. Save your idols. You don't see this kind of like devotion to idols, right? Not really, not when you look at it critically. It just seems that Muslims later backtracked it, right? They wanted to make the pre-Islamic Arabs look stupider than they were.
So they were just trying to like create a villain.
Yeah, sort of like that. It makes you look better, right? Yeah, it makes you look like more of a hero when you pick up the villain, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think maybe it's like that, but I'm not sure. But of course, I mean, it's the same mentality that people have now, right? That they think that how terrible they used to worship idols and this and that, and so it gets, that's the idea that they have. So it just gets spread.
But that's really my last question. Thank you so much. And I was actually last week. Well, it was this week, Sunday.
Yeah.
Your stream about the Ma'ruf. I was actually looking for some Reddit comments that you made about it because I was actually confused about it, but I was just spelling it wrong. But
All right,
it was a very good live stream. I really liked it.
All right, okay, brilliant. Jazakallah khair. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Have a good day, sir.
You too. Take care of yourself. Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam.
All right, okay. One more guest to bring on, and then we'll call it tonight. Our boy, our friend, Geralt. But it's saying here they will need to connect their mic cam before you can add them to the stream. Oh, he's on now. Assalamu alaikum. Oh, he's out again. Oh, back again.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam.
Is it finally working?
Yes, it's working now. How are you doing?
Alhamdulillah. Sorry about that.
No problem.
كيف الحال?
Alhamdulillah, shukrillah. How have you been?
Alhamdulillah, it's good. It's good to be back.
Yeah,
it's been a while since I've been here, but
how did your
fairly.
Exams and
I
stuff,
beg your
right?
pardon?
You had your exams and stuff, right?
Yes, yeah, I did. Alhamdulillah, they all went well. So I'm in my third and final year at the moment at UCL. So that's been challenging.
UCL still is good. That was my uni, by the way. I think I told you, right?
Yeah, I remember. It's one of the reasons why I applied. Turns out great minds. Alhamdulillah. I had a bit of an abstract question, and apologies, I did join the stream quite late, so apologies if it's something you addressed, but it was related to artificial intelligence, and I guess kind of with a very recent and rapid development of, you see, like GPT-5, kind of, and now the ability to for generative AI to generate videos that are extremely realistic. I mean, to me, it is maybe I'm fairly.
Right?
It is. Maybe I'm quite small-minded, but it kind of scares me. And perhaps more so because I've kind of grown up with that sort of fairly orthodox traditional Sunni view, especially of eschatology. When it comes to, and to me, a lot of it seems very Masih ad-Dajjal-esque, very deceptive, and I do wonder, طبعا, that Allah is obviously above all things, but it does make me wonder. I suppose what I wanted to ask you was that how do you kind of see it panning out in the near future? And do you think that it could perhaps be like an eschatological sign?
I'm not sure about the eschatological time, but one thing I'm worried about it myself. I'm more worried about it because of I'm looking at my kids now and I'm thinking, okay, what are they going to be able to? What's the world going to be like for them, right? How can I direct them so that they sort of like gain the skills or study what will be good for them, so that they'll be protected from having AI take over whatever they want to do, right?
Yeah.
So one of my daughters, she wants to be a writer, and I'm like looking at all of these things where they're creating AI is writing whole books and stuff like that. But so there's from that aspect, I'm like, okay, what can they do? Even like coding, people used to tell each other to code, right? That learn to code. Stuff now, no, you don't even need to code. You just need to tell AI what you want, and it'll write the code for you.
It's insane.
Yeah, it's absolutely insane. But a spark of sort of like hope came up a while ago, because I saw this article which was saying how the AI is getting worse because now people are, because of course the AI is training on what's online, right? What people are putting out, and since now people are putting out more AI generated stuff, so the AI is getting trained on AI, right? So it's just looping back on itself. It's looping back on itself, and sort of you're getting less and less creativity. So I saw this graph. I don't know how they were measuring like creativity or new ideas or new posts or things like that, right? And it was measuring it was steadily increasing normally, and then after sort of like the AI came on the scene big time, it's dropping down, because just basically it's like a snake eating its own tail, right? In the end, it's just going to like recycle itself, right? It's just using its own data again and again and again and again. So you can have less real innovation. Because
that is interesting.
Yeah. So it could be that this AI thing will eventually like burst.
That's the nomenclature a lot of people have been using, that we're kind of living in an AI bubble, and that it's bound to burst anytime soon.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of like hype about it, sort of like the .com bubble and stuff, where you put put a website on everything, and its value was high. So we'll see. In terms of eschatology, I mean, I don't know. I mean, where could that pan out and stuff? I mean, I'm not a big believer in the Dajjal, that there's going to be like a Dajjal sort of a thing. I mean, if the Prophet spoke about the Dajjal, it was basically just in the normal context of like deceivers, and maybe he spoke about one great deceiver, and then that got mixed in with the Antichrist from when Islam started to expand, and
sure.
And so I'm not a big believer in the whole the Dajjal stuff, but I don't know. I mean, I think AI. I think pretty soon people are going to see that it's a misnomer anyway. The idea that it's
Sure,
intelligent isn't
because
intelligent, right?
it can't. Intelligence necessitates consciousness, and it's
Yeah,
impossible for it to be consciousness. It's
yeah.
inorganic.
So
So
so there's that where eventually I think people are going to realize its limitations, um, and they're going to realize it in a way where I think it I think it could like I said, it's going to like there'll be a bubble burst or something, and then people realize, okay, we can't just rely on AI, right? I mean,
mm,
and the AI isn't really giving us anything useful. And eventually, I think the people realize that where AI will excel. So I think there are some things. It's going to be a tool. It's going to end up being understood that the tool that it's meant for. Right now,
definitely.
people are using it for everything, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Everything AI.
It
But
seems
people will soon.
underutilized for things that. I'm sorry to cut you off.
No, pretty much what I was going to say. So it seems like people are just trying to use it for everything,
Yeah,
right? And eventually, they will see that actually it's not very good at all those things, and they'll realize that it's actually good for what it is actually good for. So
بالضبط.
it's like
Yeah,
we've got like a tool, and we're using it to do everything with that one tool, um, and we'll start to realize that it isn't very good at all of those things, and there are some things that it excels at, and
mm.
we'll probably end up honing on those, I think.
إن شاء الله
Um,
يا رب.
inshallah, I mean, but the most scary thing is like when you talk about like things like the Jalik sort of things, is how AI is going to be utilized for the things which it is good at, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Which can be then used for control and for like manipulation, for scan having everybody's data, all
yeah.
that
Of course,
the Palantir kind of thing, right? They're using AI for what it is actually good for, but with nefarious ends, right?
exactly. Yeah,
That's where the scary thing is, right?
yeah.
Um,
Because the tools ultimately are neutral, but it depends who they're in the hands of.
yeah,
I remember like Sam Garren's talking a lot about data collection, about how the internet's probably gonna it'll have a few good years, and then it'll be virtually dead and not particularly useful because of. I mean, I don't know if he mentioned it sort of directly, but because of things like AI content, you can kind of see that it's headed that way. There's a lot of fatigue
yeah, yeah,
from people who are finding more and more what's termed AI slop and just kind of becoming fatigued. And I mean, I think what you said about the fact that we're kind of trying to use it for everything, and that's not working because it's only really good at certain specific things for which it's usually being underutilized for things like medicine, things like uh, data. It reminded me of I watched a YouTube video recently where a guy was comparing AI to the microwave and how when the microwave came out in the 70s and the 80s, it was. I mean, there was advertising of people putting like an entire like a roast chicken and cooking
yeah,
it from scratch in the microwave, and then like if you know how overblown and overhyped it was.
yeah,
But if you look at today, like most, if not, I mean, most people have a microwave in their home, but it's certainly not used for everything. It's no replacement
yeah,
for like an oven or a hob or even a toaster.
yeah. Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's a brilliant analogy. I never would have thought of it, but yeah, that's exactly right. So
Yeah,
it is very, very interesting. So what in the end will, when all like fuzz and fluff dies out or bursts, we are going to be left with AI being able to do some, very powerful things, right? You know,
definitely.
which will make things life a lot easier. So that's the ray of hope that I have, for my kids and young people coming up, if they can figure out what those things are, those things which AI will not be able to really do properly, right, in the future,
Yeah,
and pending new, new sort of like even better AI things. But in the end, I don't think that you can't go beyond a certain thing. In the end, there's innate limitations in having an AI, right? So
mm,
even no matter what upgrades they make, or in 10 years there's going to be an incredible AI, it will still be within the limitations of what an AI can do. And so if you can be skilled in the things which it can't do. That's going to be really important, because there are a lot of things that it can be very good at, right?
Definitely.
Or maybe just being skilled in knowing what AI is good at and utilizing it is the skill to go with.
Yeah, I mean
Right.
that's a very good point. I think one of the things that it can't ever fully replace, despite what these very delusional tech bros will tell you, is creativity in the creative arts, and then I mean also things like obviously nursing, healthcare, medicine. But just because it can produce quote unquote art or books, it really is just a regurgitation of
Yeah.
everything that all the
Yeah.
human
Yeah.
input.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, you mentioned for your children, Allah yuwaffiqhum,
Really.
and because I obviously like I write as well a lot, and I very much believe that it's not something. I mean, people may be under this they may fall under this guise to think that it really is a jack of all trades, but even if used as such, it really is master of none. So yeah, I guess I am grateful for your kind of light of optimism, and I hope I can be as optimistic, inshallah.
Hopefully.
The deceptive nature of it worries me, but then I suppose all throughout history, right, like powerful and nefarious people will have used the tools that they had available to them at the time
Yeah.
for bad purposes. But as they
Well, there
say, a
was
knife
this.
can be used to slice bread or can be used to stab someone.
Yeah, I think what was it? There was one country which made it so that everybody's um, their image, that all of their citizens now have copyright.
Oh, was it
Thing.
Denmark? I think it might have been
Was it
Denmark.
Denmark? Yeah, Denmark.
Yeah,
Okay, Denmark. Yeah, so yeah, they have copyright rights to their image and voice, so that people can't just use them now, right? So that's a good thing. I hope it goes around the world.
I really
That
hope
needs to
so.
be sorted out. The whole thing of AI using other people's literature to create new literature like books, that needs to be sorted out. I mean, I don't know how, because I know there are like writers associations or something which are trying to get laws or something like that passed, so that AI isn't just using their own literature to make books. Somebody can just have a book written out in like 5 minutes by an AI thing
Yeah,
and then sell it, and in the end that the content of that is just other writers, like you said, regurgitated or recombined. So if all of that kind of stuff happens, what AI will work, the material that AI will be able to work on is going to be what? It's going to be like internet slop most of the time, right? So,
exactly. Yeah,
and I think it's already happening, right? So people have mentioned, like I said, that chart when they're saying that AI is just becoming worse and worse because it's like a race to the bottom, like lowest common denominator, right?
exactly. Yeah,
And that's what it's ended up using more and more and more, right? Anyway, we'll see.
we'll see, inshallah. But I really appreciate your take on that. It's good to hear optimism and not doom and gloom.
Yeah, inshallah.
Fantastic. I think that was the bulk of it. I just wanted to, as a very quick aside, that you mentioned people who work within a materialistic worldview. And I try and engage with not just people within the kind of Islamic world and that kind of field of academia, but also people like Rupert Sheldrake, who
Yeah,
actually because of you I became a very big fan of.
yeah,
I've met him twice now, and I'm attending a third talk of
really
his, I believe, with Ron
nice.
Williams in November. Looking forward to that, inshallah.
Did you read his book? You read his book, The
Yeah,
Science
yeah. I
Delusion?
read The Science Delusion, and I read there was one Physics of Angels, which was more abstract, but I still enjoyed it.
Yeah, yeah, it's
But yeah,
excellent, excellent.
he
All
is
right.
fantastic,
Yeah, yeah,
definitely.
he's
So
really
thank you
good.
for the recommendation. I should say very very late, very late.
No
Thank you.
problem. No problem.
Hello.
All right.
All right then.
Get some water. All right. I think we should call it a night now. It's actually
definitely.
pretty late now. It's been a long stream as well, 3 hours. Okay.
It really has. Yeah, Jazakallah khair for having me on.
No problem. Anytime, definitely, and definitely come on the next time, right?
I would love to, inshallah.
Yeah, inshallah. Okay. All right, yalla. Assalamu alaikum.
Ya Allah. Salam wa rahmatullah. Take care.
Allah barak feek. Allah barak feek. All right, people. That was Geralt of Rivia, our esteemed fellow. And okay, the chat, I haven't really checked it up, and I think there was a lot more people watching of us. There's only 6 now. If there's something that somebody wanted to ask in the chat, if you'd like retype it, then maybe I can get to it before we sign off. Otherwise, maybe I'll try and address them in the replay or something. I can like check out these chat comments in the replay, I think. I'm not sure. Let me try and scroll very quickly and see if I can find something in the comment section. Oh yeah, going back to this. Mufti, I think he did. I saw a notification where he did like a reaction to it or something. I don't know. I was thinking like if nobody turned up today, I would try to play that. But we had a good number of guests. So maybe this is too unrealistic question, but still deep and fun. If you could ask the Prophet one question now, what would you ask him? All right. But I didn't see this earlier. If I could ask the Prophet one question now, what would I ask him? I really don't know, to be honest. I've never thought of it. I've never thought of that. What would I ask him? I don't know. I would probably ask something, nothing important, to be honest. I'd probably ask him like, "Hey, what's the funniest thing you've ever heard?" or something like that. What made you laugh the most? I'd probably ask something like that. Tell me like a funny anecdote. He said, "My son is reading the Qur'an almost daily. It was his own decision. I pray that God accepts it. I mean." Oh yeah, so we had our guest here, Nasir. Why do Muslim parents oppress their children and call it Islamic? Yes, well, because it makes them feel better about oppressing them, I suppose. All right, okay. Let me go back down to the bottom. All right, here we are. We have some questions here. Was Muhammad from Petra? Nope, definitely was not from Petra. Actually, I have a Reddit post about that. If you go into my profile and just search Petra, you'll see what I wrote about that. But no, definitely not from Petra. I think nobody believes that anymore. It was a silly theory in the first place, and it's been roundly debunked by, most academics now. What do I think about the Hajj rituals? So with the Hajj, it's the same. I believe that there's been living tradition has been passed on, right, since the Prophet's time, and the same rituals which are there. Umar tried to change a few things about the mut'ah of Hajj, but it survived him, of course. It's very simple. I mean, the only thing which I would say that you can amend Qur'anically, thing which I'm sure of, is that you can do Hajj in any of the months of Hajj. Right? So it doesn't have to be on the great day of Hajj. It doesn't have to be on Yawm Arafah. In the months of Hajj, you can do Hajj in any of those months, which makes it more reasonable when you talk about, the whole of humanity wanting to do Hajj there. It's more reasonable that you have now, rather than just one day in the year, you have 3 whole months, right? So 90 days in which people can come and do it. Brother, do you believe in dinosaurs? Also, when do you think they existed? So The whole dinosaur thing, right? So I never actually got into that level of the sort of the rabbit holes. Um, I'm not sure because I've read things which seem to suggest that a lot of it is just sort of like hype, right? Dinosaurs and stuff. There's not any real fossils, and that it's just sort of like reconstructions of things, right? Um, so I don't have a hard answer for that. If I would, to give a percentage, I would say yeah, I still, 80% believe in dinosaurs. But I'm not averse to the whole looking into if dinosaurs actually did exist or not, right? If they did, it's probably, of course, again, a very long time ago, right? Talking about the amount of time that they generally say they were. But I haven't looked into that kind of matter. Is Salat prayer or duty or translated by Sam Jones? So I think Salah is the just ritual prayer, right? So there's Iqamat as-Salah means you have to actually establish regular Salah practice. So a ritual prayer. So it is a ritual, something which you do, at regular times. Inna salat kanat al mu'minina kitaban mawquta, right? That's, a timely prescription. Like the believers the faithful make it upon themselves, a timely prescription, something you do regularly, right? So it is a ritual that's done. Again, I don't translate it as duty. No, I think that's just wrong. Is it okay to perform the Hajj if the Saudi government is oppressive? Yes, I think it is okay. I mean, what are you going to do? Just not go because of that? No, I mean, you have, because you think, okay, it's providing wealth for them. Well, it isn't just that. When you go over there, you're providing wealth for the citizens yourself, so it does help the economy there. But in the end, it's just, in the end, you're doing the Hajj for the remembrance of it, right? That's the purpose. And there's no way that you're not gonna ignore that. I mean, the Prophet did the Umrah, right, while the Meccans were in charge of it, in charge of Mecca, while Quraysh were in charge of Mecca. And even the Quran mentions that, if it weren't for faithful, believing men and women in Mecca, Allah would have allowed the Prophet to fight there because they tried to bar him from going to the to do in the Umrah, right? So this is in Surah Al-Fath if you want to go back in it. But there's an example of oppressive, tyrannical people in charge of Mecca, and the Prophet still went to do his Umrah. And then, of course, the Hajj was done after that as well, but it wasn't done while he was in charge. I don't know what they are, to be honest. I need to actually look at that. That's something I wanted to actually look into from Sam's work. What he says the mysterious letters are. Right now, I'm pretty convinced that they are basically, if you were to take back Arabic to the original, what Arabic comes from is Aramaic in the end, right? So the original Arabic is Aramaic. So all of the letters in Arabic language go back to Aramaic, and in Aramaic, every letter has a meaning. So in Arabic, the Arabic letters don't have meanings. That's what we're told. But if you take them back to their Aramaic meanings, they do have meanings. Every letter in Aramaic does have a meaning, right? So the meanings are there, but in the Aramaic versions. Why is there not a verse about compassion and kindness towards animals. There isn't one which is explicit about that, but there is one which says, that there is nothing which flies in the sky or crawls on the earth except that they are that they are nations like you. So I think that's enough to sort of like evoke compassion, right, or empathy at least, right, with the rest of animals, right, and thing. So there's that verse, but of course, in the end, the Quran is meant to be regarding religious observance between us mostly. I mean, if you're learning from the Quran how to be compassionate and merciful and all the rest of it to people, of course you're going to extend that to other living things, right? I don't see why you shouldn't. But yes, you're right. I mean, there isn't anything which is like explicit talking about, being kind to animals, but there is a lot of things which evoke sympathy, a lot of things which talk about the natural world and the bees and talking about what is it the animals that we ride and that they help us. That's a mercy that we have these animals to ride, otherwise we would not be able to reach certain places. So I think it does enough in that department of speaking about the natural world to give you an appreciation for it, which should evoke some compassion and kindness and empathy towards it. All right, okay, I think let's call it a night there. 3 hours and a half, more than enough, I think. And Jazakumullah khair for tuning in, and until inshallah maybe next week or the week after. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.